The Halo universe is rich and expansive with over 25 years of content all set in the same universe. But there's a huge problem with that, and this problem creates a barrier to entry to people who just want to start out getting into the lore. This is a barrier of entry I'm going to try to tear down today. And what is that problem? The timeline is chaos. This is the Fall of Reach. It takes place over 35 years. Within just this book, there are entire games, entire books, entire series of books, comics, movies, all set within the same time span as this book, and they aren't even mentioned here. Now, if you want to experience Halo as it came out, as in the order in which it was released, all you have to do is Google that, and you'll have a pretty good understanding of how things progressed. However, if you want to take a look at it chronologically, as in how it happened in universe, that's what we're going to talk about today. Today I'm going to try to unravel every single form of Halo media, be that game, book, movie, comic, what have you, even short stories on Waypoint. I'm going to put them in order, chronologically, to create the ultimate lore guide, from start to finish. Now, let's set expectations right off the bat. This is not a timeline video where I'm going to show you every single thing that has ever happened in Halo lore. That's not what this video is about. This is an order in which to consume the content. I'm going to go through the timeline book by book, chapter by chapter, level by level. I'll give you the title, what range to read in, what levels to play in, where to stop the movie, and then I'll give you a little narrative background of what is happening during that time. For example, I'm going to give you a title, I'll give you the range it takes place in, and then I'll give you a description of what is in that. I've also taken the liberty of putting a PDF document in the description for you to download so that you have a copy of this order that you can use on your own time. So, I think that's all the rambling I have to do beforehand. Let's get into it. To start off, we have the ancient history of the Forerunners. The Halo 4 terminals tell the story of the long and difficult struggle between the ancient humans and the Forerunners. This was a long and hard-fought war that would end up with the humans being devolved into sort of nomadic hunter-gatherers. Now, what the Forerunners didn't realize is that the humans weren't fighting, they weren't invading, they weren't encroaching on their territory. They were running from something, and that something is the Flood. The terminals start out with the Ecumane having a discussion about what to do with the humans, and it also shows a meeting between the Didact and the human Lord of Admirals for Thanko Oberyn. Hopefully I'm pronouncing that right. I'm sure I'm not. Halo Silentium, chapters 1 through 6. While Halo Silentium actually takes place at the end of this trilogy, of the Forerunner trilogy, the beginning chapters take place before Cryptum. These chapters go over the Didact's imprisonment in the Cryptum. They go over the Librarian's trip to Path Chthona, where she found Primatic Forerunners that were exiled there since they didn't take part in the killing of the Precursors. Halo Evolutions, Soma the Painter. Halo Evolutions is a collection of short stories, and this one shows the Forerunners on a planet called Seaward. This planet saw the Flood coming back to the galaxy after they retreated during the Human Flood War. The Forerunners here send word to the Didact with the quote, "The test has begun." Halo Cryptum. Halo Cryptum follows Bornstellar Makes Eternal Lasting, a young Forerunner manipular that had been sent away to work with a lesser rate as sort of a punishment. From this he runs away to Erde Tyrene. There he finds Chakas and Riser, an ancient human and a sort of ancient monkey-human primate sort of thing, and the trio go on to find a cryptum. They unlock it to find the Didact inside. The Didact then takes them on his journey to find out what has happened in the galaxy since his imprisonment. On their journey, they find the Sanshayum homeworld decimated, and they later find out that a Halo had been tested there. Bornstellar also matures into his first form, using the Didact's genetic imprint, retaining all of the Didact's memories. This book also has the trial of the Master Builder, that is interrupted by Mendicant Bias, who arrives with the Halo and gains control of 6 others. Bornstellar is able to escape through slipspace, and he arrives at the Ark where he spends time with the Librarian. It is also revealed that on the Lost Halo there is an entity, a precursor, in fact the last of the precursors. Halo Primordium. During the Master Builder's and Mendicant Bias's attack on the Forerunner capital of Maethrillion, the ship that Chakas was on was destroyed, but using an escape pod he was able to get out. He crash-landed on a Halo and he found humans of many varieties. They called themselves the People. They had been subjected to the Master Builder's horrific tests using the Flood, at a place called the Palace of Pain. This is where Chakas learned that he has an archived personality stored within him, and it was that of the Lord of Admirals that fought against the Didact during the Human Forerunner War. Now on this Halo Halo, Chakas would see the Primordial overseeing human prisoners, the Primordial being the last precursor that I mentioned earlier. He would also see a proto-Gravemind locked away in a cell. This is when he would meet up with Riser, and they would both be taken to Mendicant Bias to remove the archived personalities stored within them. Finally, Mendicant Bias tells them that the Halo they were on was on a collision course with a planet, and at this point Bornstellar arrives and disables Mendicant Bias, and he moves the Halo through a portal to the Ark. Chakas, who is already partly through his transformation to become a monitor, is then brought to the Primordial by Bornstellar. The Primordial reveals that he is the last precursor and the Gravemind. Bornstellar then kills the Primordial by activating a stasis chamber that ages him 1 billion years in a few seconds, and he disintegrates into dust. Halo Fractures, Defender of the Storm. Defender of the Storm is another short story, and it takes place right as the Flood is starting to ramp up again. This short story follows Adequate Observer as he works on a gas mining facility on a gas giant, very similar to the one we see in Halo 2 with Threshold. In this story, the facility is attacked by the Flood. It is revealed that the powers that be have not been mining for over a decade, and that the mine was a trap for the Flood. They wanted the Flood to attack the mine rather than finding what was below the mine, which was an avian creature that can survive extreme conditions. The Flood being able to capture them was a disaster scenario, so they set up this trap instead. Halo Silentium, Chapter 7 to the End. This book is really about the final days of the war with the Flood for the Forerunners. And after the chapters that we already read at the beginning of this guide, the Didact is captured by the Gravemind, and he's driven mad by this encounter. This is when he finds out the truth about the precursors and the Flood, about humanity and the mantle of responsibility. In the galaxy, the war is being lost. The Flood is pushing ever further into the Forerunners' territory until the Ark is the last stronghold of the Ecumane. This is when the Didact returns to the Ecumane. Ecumane being the Forerunner Society, basically. Now, when he returns to the Ecumane, things do not go well. The Didact and the Librarian do not see eye to eye, and this is when the Didact composes the humans living on Omega Halo. He retreats to Requiem, where the Librarian follows. Chakas takes the remaining humans to the Lesser Ark, and the Star Roads destroy Omega Halo and the Greater Ark. The Didact is saved by Chakas, who takes him to the Lesser Ark as well. The Librarian goes to arrest the Didact, and she puts him in a cryptum. This is both a punishment and a mercy. She punishes him by, arresting him and putting him in a cryptum, but in this act she also saves him from Halo. Now, the Halo array is fired, and that destroys everything in the galaxy, including the Flood. Halo 4, Terminals 5 through 7.
The Flood cover more of our galaxy with each passing day. They feast on the essence of life itself. The only way to stop their advance is to remove that life upon which they feast.
These terminals show a lot of the same things that we already read about in Halo Silentium. That's why I put them at the end. I think it's best to serve as a visual reminder of what we've already read. But it'll show the Didact mutating himself to try to become immune to the Flood. It shows the Prometheans fighting against the Flood, and the Didact using the Composer to digitize humanity into Prometheans. And it also shows the Didact being arrested, being put into a cryptum, and then put into Requiem. Halo Fractures, A Promise to Keep. This short story is about the Forerunner life shaper that reseeded the galaxy after the activation of the Halo array. Humans first, Sanghelios last, and every other species going in between. Now, this is actually a little bit of a love story between the Didact, Bornstellar makes eternal lasting, and the life shaper, Chant to Green. Both were born into the Builder's Rate, both evolved into other forms, and both of them, with the help of others, traveled back to the Forerunner capital of Maithrillion to restore the domain after the Halo damaged it. And this is when they found Abaddon, a precursor AI and custodian of the domain. During this, a Forerunner named Splendid Dust of Ancient Suns volunteered to become a monitor to be sent to the Ark to wait for the Reclaimers to come. Knowing he would spend eons alone, Bornstellar named him 000 Tragic Solitude. Hi there, I'm Future Cam, and I'm here to fix past Cam's mistakes, and the first one is right here where I forgot to add in the Halo CE terminals. So Halo CE terminals 2, 4, 7, and 8 fit in right about here. They happen right after the Halo array is fired, and it kind of just follows 343 Guilty Spark as he wanders around waiting for really anything to happen. Now, terminals 5 and 6 also happen in this long wait, and this is when that alien ship crash lands on Alpha Halo, and when Guilty Spark, along with his Sentinels, built a sarcophagus around it. The Ballad of Kel Darsam, Pre-Covenant Sangheli. The Ballad of Kel Darsam isn't actually a story like the rest of this guide. It's a story told to us during the Shadow of Intent short story of Halo Fractures. But the ballad is a song that elites have passed down from generation to generation. Kel was a demigod born to a mortal mother. His father was Urs, the god of gods in the Sangheli pantheon. He was a legendary warrior, and he sailed the seas to find and slay mythical monsters. He wanted nothing more than to continue this journey, and he wanted nothing to do with becoming Khaidon of his keep. This honor he left to his uncle, Orok Dorsam. During one of the wars with his rival keep, Orok was captured by the Khaidon Neshredum, and Kel did the only thing that he could do. He claimed the right of release. He sailed to this keep and he climbed the walls. He killed dozens of swordmasters and released his uncle. As he stood perched on the wall, ready to dive into the sea below, into safety, he is struck in the back with a spear. Now, there are two versions of this story. One version where Nesh threw the spear, and another where Urok, his uncle, through the spear. In the later version, it stated that the entire capture was a trick to kill Kel, as Orok believed that he wanted to become Khaidon, which he would have to challenge and kill his uncle, Orok, in order to do. Both versions end the same way, with Kel falling and being bathed in the light of Urs. The light touched him and turned him into divine light. Now, I think it's important to mention that Urs is the star of Sanghelios, and Kel is the Sangheli word for light that shines on water. My dumbass forgot Broken Circle, which is one of the most lore-heavy books that Halo has. And the first half is called A Place of Refuge, and what it shows is sort of the beginning years of the Covenant. And it shows that it wasn't without its hiccups. There were some elites that believed that the Covenant was a sacrilege, and they didn't want to be in the Covenant, so they went and they hid inside of a shield world. Halo 2 Terminal 6, 851 BCE.
Regarding the history of the Covenant and its glorious founding species, the Sanshayum and Sangheli.
Halo 2 has some really great terminals, and this terminal is from the Record of Punished Deeds, and it shows the ancient history of the Arbiter, ancient warriors and leaders of the Sangheli. It also tells us about the first meeting between Elite and Sanshayum, and how the Arbiter at the time sent the missionaries back their delegates' heads.
The Sangheli resisted our entreatment with ruthless force, leading to decades of war. We would eventually triumph, of course. And when we did, we would not ignore the mantle of the Arbiter.
Halo 2, Terminal 8784 BCE.
Our holy city was not always as it is, nor was the Covenant.
Now, this terminal from Halo 2 shows the taming of the Hunters, where the Arbiter was sent in to find the Let Golo worms, and how the first meeting was hostile, but at some point they were able to communicate, and the Hunters joined the Covenant.
The great Arbiter had given us one of our most sought-after treasures, access to innumerable processing pathways of the mighty Forerunner Dreadnought, and to the many secrets it held.
Halo Legends, The Duel, Early Covenant. The duel episode from Halo Legends is the absolute best in the series. Now, we aren't told when this takes place, but in its marketing it's said to take place around the same time as the Covenant started, so it should be right around here in this early Covenant zone. It tells the story of Fal Chavami, the Arbiter that saw the position change from that of greatest power to a position of greatest shame. He did not believe in the Great Journey, and as such he was branded a heretic. For this, the prophets sent Haka Sakur, an elite of equal skill. The two met, and each killed the other with a single skillful strike. Halo 2, Terminal 10, 2462.
Whereas most species were grafted into the Covenant by faith or mutual beneficence, the Ungoi were not such. Their kind was brought into the fold by force, and it was by force that they were held captive.
This terminal tells the story of the Grunt Rebellion. Overbreeding and overpopulation of the lower quarters of High Charity made the Jackals feel squeezed, so they devised a plan to kill a good number of Grunts as well as make them sterile. They poisoned the Grunts, and the Grunts fought back. It ends when the Arbiter at the time glassed a portion of Balajo, while forcing the Grunts on High Charity to watch.
Those within the Holy City would be forced to watch, unable to stop what could have been the very end of their kind. The Ungoi rebellion was brought to an end by the Arbiter's hand.
Halo Fractures, the Ballad of Hamish Beamish. Now, I'm going to preface this by saying that this is the dumbest thing to come out of Halo lore in my opinion. The Ballad of Hamish Beamish. Now this is another story to come out of Halo Fractures, and it's a poem about this guy, Hamish Beamish, who had a cryosleep malfunction and spent 10 years eating fingernails to survive. He used hair for fire for warmth, and he drank his own urine. By the time he got to Corbulo, he was mad and was made a janitor instead of a cadet. Now, the reason I say that this is the dumbest thing to come out of Halo lore is that this is Frank O'Connor. It's his cameo in Forward Unto Dawn, and this story is also read by Frank O'Connor. Now, I am not one to hate on Frank O'Connor like a lot of the Halo community is, but this just feels like a way that he canonized his cameo for Halo lore, and that's very silly to me. Halsey's Journal, August 8th, 2510 to July 21st, 2517. In the collector's edition of Halo Reach, there is a copy of Dr. Halsey's journal. These first few entries go over why she had a physical journal, her work on artificial intelligences, and the first iterations of the Mjolnir power armor. She also talks about the screening for the Spartan-II candidates, and she makes an observation on Jacob Keyes. The Fall of Reach, Chapters 1 and 2, 2517. Finally, after 17 entries, we are to the point as to why this video was made. And The Fall of Reach actually starts with a prologue that takes place in 2535, so we're gonna skip it. Don't read it quite yet. We're gonna wait until we get there. However, Chapters 1 and 2 take place on August 17th, 2517. They are the pre-kidnapping stories, where Halsey and Keyes scout out prospects for becoming Spartans. Halo Evolution's Pariah. Prologue in Chapter 1, August 2517. Much like John was talked to before his kidnapping, so was a kid named Soren. Now the prologue and Chapter 1 of a short story in Halo Evolutions called Pariah show the first meeting between Dr. Halsey and Soren, as well as how he survived on his own on the colony planet of Dwarka after his parents were killed by an illness. Mortal Dictata, Chapter 1, September 10th, 2517. I think this might be the furthest gap from chapter to main book in this guide. I'm not 100% sure on that. I might be wrong because I'm still working on it, but I think this will probably be it. I have absolutely no idea how long it's going to take us to get from here to the rest of Mortal Dictata, but this is an absolutely gripping and horrifying story. In this chapter, we get to see what a Spartan kidnapping was like from the side of the parents, specifically Naomi 010. She seemingly disappeared out of nowhere from her bus stop. Her parents, Staffan Sinsky and his wife, search the entire city. They have friends and family searching. Finally, in the middle of the night, they get a call that she's been found at a hospital. They go to the hospital and just something feels off. He's not quite able to put his hand on it, and he later comes to the conclusion that that's not his daughter. Halsey's Journal, September 15th, 2517 to September 23rd, 2517. These journal entries are about how Dr. Halsey felt about the Spartan candidates, and how they actually exceeded her expectations. She talks about Linda having spied on her teacher. She talks about Kelly and how she evaded capture for 6 whole hours. And she talks about splitting ways with Jacob Keyes. And these journal entries end with her talking about the first stages of indoctrination for the Spartans. The Fall of Reach, Chapters 3 and 4, September 23rd and 24th, 2517. After the Spartans were kidnapped, they were rigorously trained. Chapters 3 and 4 of The Fall of Reach go over the first day of the Spartans' training, where John would sit in an auditorium and listen to Dr. Halsey, and she would tell them that the children in this room were the key to humanity's survival. And the next chapter, Chapter 4, shows the Spartans' first day of training, where they were split into 3-man groups to run an obstacle course. John would ring the bell first, but his team would come in last, so that night, they wouldn't eat. The next day, John, Sam, and Kelly would work together and win the race. Dr. Halsey's Journal, September 28th, 2517 to December 10th, 2518. In these journal entries, Dr. Halsey talks about Kelly disarming the barber that was cutting her hair. She also talks about how the replacement clones have far exceeded her expectations for longevity, and they end on her reflecting on possible leaders emerging from the pack. The Fall of Reach, Chapter 5, July 12th, 2519. In the 5th chapter of The Fall of Reach, the Spartans are dropped into the wilderness, all at different points, and they all have different sections of the same map. The Spartans have to find each other and work together to get the map put together, and then they have to find a way home. To do this, they use rocks to incapacitate guards, and they steal a pelican to fly home. Halo Evolution's Pariah, Chapter 3. Soren was with the rest of the Spartans during their training and schooling. This is a short chapter that takes place somewhere in between them getting kidnapped and them receiving their augmentations. In this chapter, Soren speaks about how he sometimes just wants to be alone, how it's difficult to sleep with the others around him because their breathing reminds him of his stepfather. And it ends with Soren and Halsey having a conversation about the Spartans' augmentations. Contact Harvest, full book, 2524 to 2525. The beginning months of the war will have a lot of lore going with them, and the start of it is Contact Harvest. This tells the story of how the minor transgression traced cargo ships back to Harvest, how Johnson was the first person to ever kill a Covenant soldier, how Tartarus started a war that would rage on for 28 years and bring every species that participate in it to near ruin, and it would tell how the 3 high prophets came to power. This is a great book, and it has a ton of Covenant lore that shows just how sleazy the prophets really are. Dr. Halsey's Journal, March 9th, 2525. In this journal entry, Dr. Halsey details the augmentations that she would be giving the Spartans later this very day. Augmentations to the bones and to the muscles to make them grow larger and stronger, many times that of a normal person. A thyroid implant that would regulate their hormones, making them massive. Increased blood flow to the eyes to make them see in near perfect darkness, and many, many more. The Fall of Reach, Chapter 6 and 7, March 9th to March 30th, 2525. After a short story, a few journal entries, and an entire book, we finally get back to the Fall of Reach, if only for a short time. Chapter 6 in the Fall of Reach is Augmentation Day. The Spartans receive their augmentations, killing some, crippling others, but leaving about half as the ultimate weapons. In Chapter 7, on March 30th, the Spartans remember their dead and injured in a ceremony. After this, John goes to the gym to work out, and he is interrupted by a few ODSTs. In a test orchestrated by the Office of Naval Intelligence, John would kill 2 ODSTs, and the remaining would have very serious injuries. Dr. Halsey's Journal, April 1st to September 1st, 2525. In these journal entries, Halsey explains the washout's injuries. She goes on to say that nearly 80% of them will be able to be augmented again. They go over her move to Castle Base and a little bit about Mjolnir. One thing to note is that she talks about someone getting into the suit for testing, an unaugmented person in Mjolnir where the suit breaks his bone. He reacts and it breaks again and again and again until the person is just a dead, crumpled mess. Halo Evolution's Pariah, Chapter 4 through 6. 3 months after augmentation, Soren wakes up in a coma. Stressed and scared about what's going on, he panics. He tears off his restraints and he throws himself out of bed. He fights off doctors trying to subdue him, throwing one against a wall. He breaks one's wrist and he stabs another in the neck. The panic ends when Scipio Mendez and a squad of Marines are able to shoot him with tranq darts. He later wakes up in the brig. He's much more calm, and he was let out. He wanted to return to a combat role, and Scipio Mendez told him that just can't happen. The Fall of Reach, Chapters 8 through 10, September 11th to September 14th, 2525. Chapters 8, 9, and 10 start with the Spartans training in pitch black against guards that were in exoskeletons, and the exhibition is insanely impressive. They go on to the Spartans' first mission, where they infiltrate an insurrectionist stronghold, and they were successful in capturing Colonel Robert Watts, a UNSC traitor and high-ranking member of the insurrection. Halo Wars Genesis, October 7th, 2525. Halo Wars Genesis is a short comic that was included in the collector's edition of Halo Wars. The first few pages are about Admiral Cole, how he is brought out of his quiet retirement and put back in control of a massive fleet. He goes to Harvest to destroy a Covenant ship that was patrolling the planet in orbit. He was successful in doing so, but he lost 13 of his own ships in the process. The Fall of Reach, Chapters 8 through 10, September 11th to September 14th, 2525. These chapters go over the first encounter that the Spartans had with the Covenant, where the UNSC Commonwealth tries and fails to destroy a Covenant Xanar pattern light cruiser. The Spartans are able to retrieve their armor from the Damascus testing facility, and they infiltrate the ship to blow it up from the inside. Unfortunately, this is where the first Spartan dies, Samuel. Halo Legends Homecoming, 2525.
In 2291, slip space technology makes space colonization a reality. In 30 years, mankind establishes the inner colonies in the heart of the Milky Way, and soon into the outer periphery. In the year 2525, the human race encounters an advanced alien alliance. This alliance called itself the Covenant.
Homecoming is a heartbreaking story about Spartan Daisy 023. Now, the flashback sections happen right after the augmentations in 2525. She goes home to find her Flash clone still alive. Now, there's a lot more to this story that I don't want to ruin for you. You should absolutely go watch it yourself. It's here on YouTube for free, so please do yourself a favor and go watch that. Halo Infinite has 3 trailers called UNSC Archives, and I'm so glad that I remembered these, because these are some of the most heart-wrenching and gripping tales told in Halo. This specific one is called Unspoken, and it happens on the 17th of January in 2526, or rather, the event that this person is talking about happens at that time. And it covers a man named Chris Preston, who, with his friend, David Dominguez, fought off a group of jackals on Harvest. These are the 2 that actually recovered the Jackal Shield Gauntlet that we'll talk about later on in Dr. Halsey's journal, and that would eventually lead into the energy shielding that Mjolnir has. Now David is killed, and Chris suffers an injury that would leave him without a voice. Silent Storm, March and April of 2526. The Spartans didn't get very much time to mourn Sam's death, unfortunately, because they were so very busy. The UNSC saw the success that the Spartans had a few months earlier, being able to destroy a Covenant ship basically single-handedly. The UNSC created a plan to buy time so that they could create effective countermeasures against the Covenant. This was to just send in Spartans with nukes and have ODSTs assist them. This is the book where the Master Chief would actually gain that rank, and it's also the book where Hector Nieto would turn cloak and show his true colors. Dr. Halsey's Journal, May 3rd, 2526. On May 3rd, Dr. Halsey talks about the differences between smart and dumb AI. How dumb isn't actually dumb, they're incredibly smart, just limited to their field of expertise, while smart AIs don't have such limitations. She goes on to talk about rampancy and what causes it. Forward Unto Dawn, May 2526.
This is a military academy. They're teaching us how to fight. My older brother, he trained here. You know, he was quite popular. He was, a lot of the teachers' favorites.
Now, slotting right in between Halo Silent Storm and Halo Oblivion is a 6-week period-ish that Forward Unto Dawn takes place during. This is the origin story of Captain Lasky, someone we won't run into again until 2557. I'm sure you've all seen it, so I'm not going to spend much time on it. But the Kabulo Academy of Military Science is attacked by the Covenant. Every single person on the planet is killed except for a group of cadets. That blue team is sent in to retrieve.
We don't have much time. Let's go.
Oblivion, June 2526. Halo Oblivion is a really fantastic book that takes place right after Halo 4 Forward Unto Dawn. It's another Blue Team story that is a direct sequel to Silent Storm. It takes place on a planet called Netherop. Now, there are great interactions between Blue Team and the natives of the planet, which aren't actually natives, but actually descendants of castaways, people who had been purposely stranded on the planet. Kaizat Neverosi comes back, and there's even precursor activity happening on this planet. It's a really good book that I could not recommend enough. Halo Evolution's Pariah, Chapter 7 to the End, 2526. After being at a desk job for a couple of months, Soren started to feel fed up with the UNSC. Now, one of Soren's co-workers actually started working on him, starting to plant some insurrectionist ideas, you could say. And Soren, against his better judgment, did not report him. After months of this, these two tried to defect and steal something from the Office of Naval Intelligence. They would be stopped by Spartan Randall, and Soren and Randall would fight until that coworker is able to shoot Randall with a tranq dart. Now the two would steal a long sword to try to escape, but they were being tailed by other small craft that were able to damage the longsword enough to where it wouldn't be able to escape the planet's gravity, so Soren had to crash land it. Dr. Halsey's Journal, December 11th, 2529 to April 19th, 2530. In this journal entry, Dr. Halsey talks about her work on the Jackal Gauntlet that the Spartans recovered. In the very next entry, she's going to talk about how Mendez has seemingly disappeared from the galaxy, and nobody seems to know where he's gone or what he's doing. Halo Wars Genesis, January 3rd, 2531. Now, after starting the first couple pages a while ago, we can go back and finish Halo Genesis. The rest of the comic is about the Spirit of Fire. It's sent to Harvest to help a ship called the UNSC Prophecy. This is also where we get to see Ripamorami become the Arbiter, or at least the steps it took for him to become the Arbiter. The Fall of Reach, Prologue, February 2531. Now is when we can go back to the beginning of the Fall of Reach and actually read the prologue. This is just a short story of Blue Team blowing up a rather large amount of grunts, but it's the first little bit of greatness we get out of the Spartans using non-verbal communication that is integrated into the Mjolnir power suit. Halo, Ghosts of Onyx, Chapter 1, May 1st, 2531. Encompassing a large part of 2531 are the first 5 chapters of Ghosts of Onyx. This one also suffers the same problem as the Fall of Reach, spanning over multiple decades, so we have to split it up quite a bit for this guide. For now, we're going to skip the prologue and read the first chapter. And the first chapter introduces Kurt as a member of Blue Team. It tells the story of how Blue Team was captured by insurrectionists led by General Graves, and how Kurt used anti-tank mines in order to save his Spartans, ripping through the insurrectionists while the shrapnel bounced off of his Spartans. He was able to do this because he stayed back, having a funny feeling about the whole situation. Dr. Halsey's Journal, July 12th, 2531. This journal entry is about the Office of Naval Intelligence using a new generation of AI for surveillance. But what's really interesting here is what is written in the margin. Quote, Jacob has agreed to take her in. I'll miss her, but it's for the best. Now obviously this is referring to Miranda, who originally had the name of Miranda Halsey. Ghosts of Onyx, Chapters 2 through 5, October 24th to December 14th, 2531. Now we can go back to the Ghosts of Onyx for Chapters 2, 3, 4, and 5. They go over Ackerson's pitch to Oni and the UNSC leadership for a new Spartan program, one with safer augmentations, fewer casualties, and higher numbers. These chapters also show how Kurt was taken from the Spartans in a freak accident in space, and finally Chapter 5 is Kurt waking up and being told that he would lead and train a new generation of Spartans on a planet called Onyx. Halo Wars, 2531.
5 years. 5 long years. That's how long it took us to get Harvest back.
Go, go, go!
At first it was going well. Then setback after setback. Loss after loss. Made what was going to be a quick and decisive win into 5 years of hell.
Halo Wars takes place in 2531, and much of the previous sections actually happen at the same time as Halo Wars. But for the sake of brevity, I went ahead and just made it a separate section, because there's really no overlap. But we all know the Spirit of Fire, captained by James Cutter, aids in the defense of Harvest, where they would defend a Forerunner site. They would then follow the Covenant to Arcadia, where they meet Spartan Red Team, and where they evacuate civilians. After a battle, Dr. Ellen Anders is taken prisoner by the Covenant's Arbiter, Ripamorami, and again, the Spirit of Fire follows them. this time to a shield world, where they would find an entire Forerunner fleet waiting for the Covenant to take. Instead, the Spirit of Fire sacrificed its slip-space drive and Sergeant John Forge to destroy the fleet. The rest of the crew of the Spirit of Fire entered cryosleep for the long drift back to human space.
There's nothing to do.
But Captain...
But nothing, Professor. You got us all out of there alive. Get some rest.
Not all of us, Captain. Not all of us.
Ghosts of Onyx, Chapters 6 and 7, December 27th, 2532. Next, we go back to Ghosts of Onyx, just for 2 short chapters. They take place in December of 2532, a year after the previous chapters end. In these chapters, the first of the Spartan-IIIs arrive at Camp Currahee, where they are greeted by an 8-foot-tall monolith of a human, Kurt, in his Mjolnir armor. The 6-year-old orphans pour out of a pelican to be recruited to become Spartan-IIIs. Dr. Halsey's Journal, January 18th, 2532 to January 7th, 2535. On January 18th of 2532, Dr. Halsey learns that Oni has been sending chemicals used in the Spartan-II augmentations to other places in the galaxy. She concludes that there must be a new project started somewhere. She's angry that she wasn't even consulted on this project. She goes on to talk about advancements in the field of AI generation, and she details differences between the Mark IV and Mark V Mjolnir power suits. Hey, hate to pause you again, but Halo Reach has a trailer that would fit in right around here. It would happen sometime in the mid-30s, and this is where Carter receives his augmentations. Halo: The Cole Protocol, 2535. In 2535, the yet-to-be legend Jacob Keyes would work together on a colony built into an asteroid called the Rebel. There's some great Covenant lore in this book. This is where the Kydon and Keep system of Sanghelios was introduced. This is where Thel is attacked by assassins on the night of his ascension to Kydon. And this is where the first hints of the squabbles between the prophets are shown. And really, that's just the tip of the iceberg for this book. I highly recommend you read it. Dr. Halsey's Journal, November 22nd, 2535 to January 10th, 2536. And these journal entries, Dr. Halsey goes over Covenant technology that she has been able to recover and her difficulties trying to figure out how they work. She notes that the triggers and external controls have no physical connection to the firing mechanisms, and in her next journal entry she talks about the Jackal shield gauntlet again and how she may be able to make some sort of energy shielding from Mjolnir. Tales from Slipspace. Something has happened. January 2537. For the first time now, we are able to dig into the Tales from Slipspace anthology of comics. This one shows the Spirit of Fire in 2537. After being in cryosleep for 6 years, the ship's AI, Serena, wakes up Dr. Ellen Anders after finding out that the Flood had infiltrated the ship. She also realizes that she's been making simple mistakes since she has started to go rampant. With Jerome's help, they are able to destroy the infection by use of Chair and sending them out into space. Serena also asks Anders to terminate her so she will not make any more mistakes that might cost someone their life. Dr. Halsey's Journal, May 25th, 2537. This is a really short section of the journal, and it's really just Dr. Halsey, with the help of Kamaya, trying to crack the Covenant language. They wonder if the orientation of the symbols actually matters and what it actually means, hoping that being able to crack this language will help them with the war. Ghosts of Onyx, Chapters 8 and 9, July 30th, 2537 to August 24th, 2541. In Chapter 8 of Ghosts of Onyx, Kurt attends a meeting to discuss the successes of Alpha Company and to determine the future of the Spartan-III program. Chapter 9 is our introduction to Beta Company, the second batch of Spartan-IIIs. After the first class, Kurt did everything in his power to try to improve the program and increase survivability. In this chapter, we see a training session through the eyes of Tom. Dr. Halsey's Journal, March 18th, 2543 to May 20th, 2544. It seems that somewhere after 2537, Dr. Halsey lost her journal. This entry is about her finding it, discussing whether or not she should transcribe her new journal into this one, and on May 20th she notes that almost nothing has been able to stop the Covenant other than her Spartans, and she says that if she is able to crack the Covenant language, she may be able to replicate shielding for Mjolnir. Halo Legends, The Package, The Babysitter, 2544.
The Covenant has captured a high-priority package. Spartans, it's your job to infiltrate enemy space and retrieve it. Mission window, 10 minutes. The target is equipped with a location beacon, but you'll have to get close to read it. It's a weak signal with a short radius. A local stellar magnetic field is preventing the Covenant fleet from making a slipspace jump. You'll be flying in with EVA booster frames. When you reach the Covenant fleet, find the signal, find the ship, find a way in, and grab that target. The Covenant doesn't appear to realize the full value of what they've acquired, and that's the way we want to keep it. Complete the extraction before they figure out what they've got. All right, Spartans. You have your orders. Good luck.
Yes, sir.
Now we go back to Halo Legends, where both the package and the babysitter both happen in 2544. Now the package is about a group of Spartans that rescue Dr. Halsey from a Covenant ship, and the babysitter is about a squad of ODSTs that come face to face with a Spartan. Now obviously these are vague descriptions and non-detailed summaries, but again, they're free on YouTube, and I want you to go watch them. Ghosts of Onyx, Prologue, July 2545. Now we can finally flip back to the prologue of Ghosts of Onyx. This is the raid on Pegasi Delta, a disastrous suicide mission that the Spartan-III Beta Company was sent on. The only survivors would be Tom and Lucy. Dr. Halsey's Journal, September 3rd to September 5th, 2547. These journal entries are about improving slipspace in the Shah Fujikawa translate engines. Now what's really interesting here is that 2 pages have been ripped out of the journal. Then on the 5th, she talks about how all of her friends are dead. She checks the KIA list daily for people that she once knew, and at this point, all of her friends are AIs. Halo, Battleborn, and Meridian Divide, 2548. Halo, Battleborn, and Meridian Divide are both made for a younger audience, and as such don't get treated with the same respect as other books. But they're about a group of young people on Meridian, the planet from Halo 5, as the Covenant is invading it. Luckily though, they have a Spartan, Owen B096, a Spartan-III, who helps them through the conflict and helps train the people on Meridian. Unfortunately, the planet still gets glassed. Halo Legends, Prototype, 2549. Prototype is another Halo Legends short story, this time set in 2549. A UNSC research facility is under attack by the Covenant. A few Marines were ordered to go and destroy a prototype suit of armor. Civilian transports are being shot down from the air, and the pair of Marines gets pinned down. One of them is injured and the other one holds him, waiting to die. Then there's an explosion as someone wearing the prototype pruning Yggdrasil armor system flies to the rescue. The same armor, in fact, that the Marines were ordered to destroy, so the Covenant couldn't get their hands on it. Sergeant Ghost, the one driving the suit, erases the data and uses the remaining time on the suit to hold the Covenant off so his team can get to safety.
Voice command authorization. Be human. And for one last instant, I'm human again.
Halo Evolutions, Midnight in the Heart of Midlothian, March 19th, 2549. ODST Michael Baird has cancer, and he's been put under for surgery to remove it. He then wakes up as the only human alive on the station as it had been invaded by the Covenant. Michael needs to get to the control station to reboot the ship's AI, Mo Yi, who would have self-destructed the ship if not for Michael's being there. While the human is on the station, she can't destroy it. So he sets out to destroy the navigational database instead. But he runs into a Covenant team. After killing 2 jackals, a grunt runs into him and an elite stabs through the grunt into Michael. He falls unconscious. When he awakes, the station's AI, Mo Yi, shows him a medicine cabinet that has ramble drugs in it, a drug that insurrectionists used to fight Spartans. It makes them impervious to pain and incredibly strong. Michael takes the ramble drugs and runs to the command center, where he reboots Mo Yi and attacks the elites there. being killed. Mo Yi then blows up the ship, protecting the location of Earth. I have to interrupt you again with a UNSC archive trailer that shows the creation of the grapple shot. This was created by a civilian engineer. Unfortunately, we don't know what her name is, but the grapple shot was rejected time and time again by the Office of Naval Intelligence until finally she got it to work. And on October 16th of 2049, her plans were finally accepted. Dr. Halsey's Journal, March 24th, 2549 to November 23rd, 2550. This is a pretty dense section of Dr. Halsey's journal. She has figured out a way to have an AI chip slot directly into a human's brain. This was basically the final hurdle for the Mark V Mjolnir. They go on to show that Halsey has successfully cloned herself and removed the brains from the clones and placed them into cryogenic storage units. Now remember this for Shadows of Reach. These entries go on further to show the creation of Cortana and Miranda, now with the name of Miranda Keyes, joining the military, and she finally talks about an archaeological dig site at Visegrad. Ghosts of Onyx, Chapters 10 and 11, February 19th, 2551. In 2551, we return to Ghosts of Onyx for almost the last time. This time for Chapters 10 and 11, where the Spartan-IIIs of Gamma Company are on the UNSC Hopeful, receiving their augmentations. This is also where we learn about the slipspace comm launchers that are massive underground cannons that shoot small devices into slipspace to be retrieved at a far-off location. This is one of humanity's fastest means of communication. Also where we learn of the illegal frontal lobe augmentations that Kurt has given the Gamma Company Spartan-IIIs. Dr. Halsey's Journal, February 19th, 2551 to May 10th, 2551. In these journal entries, Dr. Halsey has noticed that the UNSC Hopeful has disappeared from Reach's orbit and wonders why. About a week later, she notices that the Hopeful has returned, and again wonders where it went and what it was used for. Halo 2 Terminal 14, 2551.
Activate the Kindler. Make haste. We have little time.
This terminal from Halo 2 shows the Covenant finding the luminary that would lead them to Halo. They're able to find this on a moon above Meridian. It tells them about Halo, and it tells them about the Ark, the installation that made the sacred rings.
The sacred rings. Halo.
And not Halo alone, High Prophet. It also told of this. The final home of the Forerunners, and the creation of the sacred rings. The Ark.
By the gods. It is glorious. The stories were true.
Halo Waypoint Chronicles, Winter Contention, December 12th, 2551. Halo Waypoint Chronicles are short stories that are published on Halo Waypoint, and they're given an audio version on YouTube. This one covers the defense of a planet called Concord. Spartan-III Noble Teams Kat, Rosedna, and Tom take control of a Draugr mobile fortress, and they use it to destroy the remaining Covenant forces in the area. After the mission, Carter tells the team that they are being redeployed to Fumirole, and Rosedna is being reassigned to somewhere else. Halo Helljumpers, January 9th, 2552. Helljumper is a comic that follows Dutch and Romeo. The two investigate the colony of Ariel that had been attacked by the Covenant. When they get there, the colony is empty, so they go underground to investigate the colony's reactor, and that is when they are attacked. In the fight, the reactor begins to overload, and it explodes. The pair is only saved by using Elite's bodies as shields. They end up finding where the civilians have been taken by the Covenant, and they rescue them. They decide to investigate further, where they find a Forerunner construct and a Prophet. The Prophet retreats, and the Forerunner construct self-destructs. For the final UNSC archive trailer, it's probably the most heartbreaking. It is very heartbreaking, it's very gripping, and this one tells the story of miners who are mining the very, very rare materials that would go in to Mjolnir's undersuit. And the Covenant, unfortunately, attacking them. They're trapped underground, and in one last stand of defiance, they sing a song, and someone uses this material to scratch a message into the wall. Unfortunately, they would all be killed. Halo Reach trailer, The Battle of Fumirole, April of 2552. Now we get to take a little break to watch one of the best video game trailers that has ever been made. This trailer covers the Battle of Fumirole, a battle that would see the death of the previous Noble Six. Kat is tasked with taking a Fury tactical nuke to a battle cruiser that was hanging over the city. She would be hit with a fuel rod cannon from a Banshee. This is when she would lose her arm. Tom, the previous Noble Six, takes the nuke via jetpack to the ship, but unfortunately is unable to escape the blast. Dr. Halsey's Journal, May 15th, 2552. On May 15th, Dr. Halsey found absolute proof that Oni had continued a Spartan program past her Spartan-IIs. She's very, very angry that they've done this, and even more angry that they did it without her, noting that without her, they're undoubtedly taking shortcuts that she wouldn't let pass. Halo Bloodline, mid-2552. Halo Bloodline is a run of comics that tells the story of Spartan Black Team as they crash on a deserted moon. A Covenant ship, the Clarity of Faith, suffers the same fate. Soon after, members of both sides are abducted by mechanical beings called Gatherers. The Spartans then reluctantly team up with the Covenant to find their missing member, who was taken by 686 Ebullient Prism, who informed them that they would be used to find an immunity to the Flood. The joint Spartan Covenant team track down their missing friends, and the Covenant immediately turns on them, saying that the truce only lasted until they found their missing comrades. One elite kills another since he dishonored himself by working with humans, and Prism kills the other elites. Black Team then destroyed Prism. Halo Evolutions, Blunt Instrument, mid-2552. In this short story, Black Team is sent to a colony called Verge to destroy a Covenant beacon and end the Covenant's supply of helium. When they got there, they found a drone called Hapalong. The team proceeds to destroy the beacon with explosives, and Hapalong guides them to the hive of drones that Black Team thinks are slaves, but they actually turn out to be hostile. The team then has to fight their way through them, finally escaping on a train. The Fall of Reach, chapters 15 through 23, July 17th and 18th of 2552. Finally, we can return to the Fall of Reach, and this is a pretty sizable chunk of the book, and man, it's a really good section. This is the Battle of Sigma Octanus IV, starting with Ensign Lovell discovering the Covenant's fleet, to the legendary Keys Loop, to the Spartans on the ground finding an odd granite ball with rubies inlaid. This would lead them to Alpha Halo. This is also the section that includes the Cradle, a massive ship that was used to refit and repair other UNSC ships. Now, this ship was very long and wide, but very, very thin. So it was stationed out in front of all the UNSC ships. The UNSC ships shot their initial volley to the Covenant, and then the Cradle turned, and the UNSC basically used it as a shield. The Covenant then fired upon it, killing all on board, but it gave the UNSC the protection they needed to win the battle. This is also where Commander Keys would become Captain Keys. Dr. Halsey's Journal, July 18th to July 23rd, 2552. Following the success of Sigma Octanus IV, Dr. Halsey reads the after-action report. She notes that it's odd that the Covenant came back after Keys fought them off, but she also realizes that this isn't unheard of. It's not something that hasn't happened before. It happened both on Harvest and on Meridian, and in the final entry of this section, Halsey says that she has lost contact with the archaeological site at Visegrad. Halo Reach, Noble Actual, and Winter Contingency, July 24th, 2552. Now we are finally able to play some really great Halo gameplay. The mission at Visegrad takes place on July 24th. Noble Team is to go to Visegrad and figure out why the communication relay has gone down, and before long they are in a battle with the Covenant ground forces. They are ambushed by elite zealots and are able to find Halsey's research team.
The Covenant are on Reach. Acknowledge?
Come again, Noble One? Did you say Covenant?
Affirmative. It's the Winter Contingency.
May God help us all.
Dr. Halsey's Journal, July 24th, 2552. Dr. Halsey's suspicions about a new program coming to light grow as she hears about a special operations unit called Noble Team. She also makes note of atmospheric anomalies and slip space monitoring glitches. Halo Reach Sword Base, July 26th, 2552.
All right, people. We're stuck with that ship for the time being. Let's focus on the hostile infantry. Give those troopers a hand. Cat 6, you're out here. George, Emil, you're next. Get prepped.
The attack on Sword Base happens 2 days after Noble Team declared winter contingency. Noble 2 and Noble 6 work to fight the Covenant back away from the base. Then they activate the base's air defenses and head back to the base, where they find the Covenant has been able to break inside. They successfully fight through the Covenant to the higher levels of the base, where they destroy Banshees and Phantoms. Once the sky is clear, Longswords chase a Covenant corvette before it is struck with a Mach round from orbit.
Beautiful, ain't it? Someone should take a picture. Nice work, by the way.
I aim to please.
5, 6, get down to the science wing. Dr. Halsey wants a debrief and command saying we're all hers.
Repeat? Sounded like you said Halsey.
I did.
Dr. Halsey's Journal, July 26, 2552 to August 3rd, 2552. In this journal entry, Dr. Halsey goes over what Noble Team was able to recover from Visegrad. She also talks about the revelations of the Covenant being on Reach. She speaks about Noble Team, who she has now come face to face with, and she says that they are indeed Spartans, but they are not her Spartans, with the exception of George. On August 3rd, she talks about the beginnings of Operation Red Flag, a Hail Mary project designed to end the war. Halo Evolutions Dirt, August 2552. Dirt starts in August of 2552, so I'm putting it here because this short story is about an ODST named Greg telling the rookie his life story. So while parts of this story happen before this, the story itself takes place right around here. The rookie finds a downed Pelican with an injured pilot. The pilot tells the rookie all about his life before telling the rookie to run for it. The Covenant was coming from one side, and adversarial CMA ODSTs were coming from the other side, and so he tells the rookie to book it. Once the rookie was at a safe distance, Gage detonates a nuke, killing himself and thousands of enemy troops. Halo Reach, Midnight and Tip of the Spear, August 11th and 12th, 2552.
It's starting to get crowded up here, Cat.
Then we're closing in. Report to any Covenant structures or devices. Direct action may be necessary.
Copy that. When the Cat runs an op, direct action is always necessary.
A couple weeks after Sword Base, Noble 3 and Noble 6 conduct a reconnaissance mission where they find an entire Covenant invasion army. The next day, the UNSC personnel on Reach attack that army with the goal of destroying the command spires. They were successful in destroying one when the UNSC Grafton used its Mach to blow it into bits. Unfortunately, the CSO supercarrier, the Long Night of Solace, would use its excavation beam to destroy the Grafton.
No, somebody tell me this ain't happening.
UNSC frigate Grafton, do you copy?
The Grafton is dust. We need to get out of here now.
The Fall of Reach, Chapter 24, August 12th, 2552, 1100 hours. Just 3 hours after the raid on the Spire by Noble Team, the Master Chief gives a report to the Office of Naval Intelligence and Navy Leadership about the artifact he got from the Natural History Museum on Sigma Octanus IV. He also meets Captain Keyes for the first time since he was a little boy. Dr. Halsey's Journal, August 12th, 2552. In this journal entry, Dr. Halsey goes to meet Captain Keyes in orbit on his ship, the Iroquois. The ship was being repaired after the damages it received during the Battle of Sigma Octanus IV and the Keyes Loop. The two talk about their daughter, Miranda Keyes, the Keyes Loop, and Operation Red Flag. Halo Reach, The Long Night of Solace, Exodus, and New Alexandria, August 14th to August 23rd, 2552.
Thankfully, help is imminent. 60% of the UNSC fleet is en route to Reach from existing deployments. The first battle group should arrive within 48 hours.
48 hours?
That's imminent?
2 days after the attack on the Spires, Noble 6 and Noble 5 would destroy the Long Night of Solace. 6 would fall back to Reach using a re-entry pack to somewhat safely re-enter the atmosphere and land. 6 would then spend the next 9 days walking to New Alexandria to meet back with Noble Team. Unfortunately, not long after his arrival, another member of Noble Team would be killed while running to an underground bunker to escape glassing.
Where does he get off calling a demolition a priority one?
Come on, get in!
Let's go, come on!
Close the doors! Faster!
The Fall of Reach, Chapter 25. August 25th, 2552. Chapter 25 of The Fall of Reach takes place 2 days after Noble Team enters their bunker. In this chapter, Dr. Halsey tries to understand the artifact that John recovered, and it is also the first time we hear about Cortana. Halo Reach, exiting the bunker, August 26th, 2552. 3 days after the team entered the bunker with Kat's corpse, they are finally able to exit the bunker and seek extraction. The Fall of Reach, Chapters 26 and 27, August 27th to the 29th, 2552. On August 27th, the Spartans are briefed on Operation Red Flag. This was a Hail Mary plan to end the war. The Spartans were told that they were to board the Pillar of Autumn, to go and capture a Covenant ship, something they had never done before. Then go to the Covenant's homeworld, to capture a prophet and force a ceasefire. Again, at this time, they didn't know about High Charity. They didn't know the homeworld was mobile. This plan was doomed from the start, and August 29th saw a legendary event. This, my friends, is the famous live fire test where the Master Chief first met Cortana and put on the famous Mark V armor that he would use in Halo Combat Evolved. This is also where Chief would slap a missile out of the air. Dr. Halsey's Journal, August 27th to August 29th, 2552. In tandem with the previous section are the last few journal entries from Dr. Halsey's Journal. She talks about briefing the Spartans on Red Flag. She talks about the surgery that John had so that Cortana can fit in his head, and she talks about their live fire test as well. Halo Reach, the package, August 29th, 2552.
Noble 1. This is Noble Actual. Noble 1, go ahead. We need that base taken out, son. What's your status? Still outside. Thermal on the interior shows standing room only. We're gonna have to thin them out or we'll be way too popular. Copy that, Noble 1.
20 hours after the live fire test, Noble Team entered Sword Base to retrieve Cortana's fragment from Dr. Halsey. Now, if you thought we were skipping around a lot before, get ready for August 30th. The day Reach falls.
Air attacks have decimated many convoys en route. An armada of Covenant cruisers is hastening to the site as well. UNSC cruiser Pillar of Autumn is awaiting your arrival.
Wouldn't be a Noble mission if it were easy.
I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just killing time so that I can have the transition. You know, the transitions that I've been doing throughout the whole video? I'm just killing time so we can do that. Anyway, but we're going to take a quick break here because August 30th is an insane day for Halo lore. It is the day that Reach falls. So we're going to be mixing together 2 books as well as the end of Halo Reach. So I just wanted to take a really quick break here to tell you that I appreciate each and every one of you. I thank you all for watching. I thank you all for being engaged. I'm going to continue making long-form videos. I think this is sort of my future. However, I am a very busy person, and I probably won't have a regular schedule, at least not for now. So if you want to, if you want to see more videos like this, if you want to see videos as they come out, make sure to subscribe and also have notifications on. I haven't made one of these videos in almost 2 years, and I actually went back to look at what the channel was like 2 years ago when I actually made those videos, and the channel had 4,000 subscribers, which is 10%, about 10% of what I have at recording. So I can't thank you all enough. You guys have completely changed my life. So thank you guys for watching, and let's get back to The Fall of Reach. The Fall of Reach, chapters 28 through 33. August 30th, 2552, 0400 hours. Now this is a very rare thing where this is actually in the script. I remember recording it, and then the footage just disappeared. So chapters 28 through 33 starts with this revenge plot against Colonel Ackerson by the hand of Cortana. It also shows Captain Keyes being shown his new ship, the Pillar of Autumn, and its amazing upgrades. It continues throughout the early morning of the 30th with the arrival of the Covenant and the ensuing battle above the planet. The Fall of Reach, Chapter 34, and First Strike, Chapter 1, August 30th, 2552, 0558 hours. Chapter 34 of The Fall of Reach and the first chapter of First Strike both cover the same event but from two different points of view. In The Fall of Reach, the Master Chief gets his orders to defend the ground generators for the Supermax stations, as well as his orders to secure the nav data on the Circumference in Oni's ship. Chapter 1, however, of First Strike is the exact same thing happening from the eyes of Fred. This chapter also leads through the disastrous re-entry of Red Team that would result in the Spartans having to jump from their Pelican to get down to Reach. The Fall of Reach, chapters 35 and 36, August 30th, 2552, 0616 hours. Now, these chapters have a lot going on. They show Chief, Linda, and James going to the orbital defense station to erase the Circumference's nav data. Unfortunately, it's also where we would lose another Spartan. James. He is shot in his thruster pack by a needler round and is sent drifting out into space. By the time anyone would be able to save him, Reach is gone. First Strike, Chapter 2, August 30th, 2552, 0631 hours. Chapter 2 of First Strike starts with the Spartans falling from atmosphere and slamming into the ground, rocks, trees, and each other. Once they regroup, they realize that they have lost 4, and 6 had major injuries. The Fall of Reach, Chapter 37 and Epilogue, August 30th, 2552, 0637 hours. Finally, in Chapter 37, the Master Chief is able to destroy the navigational data on the Circumference. Unfortunately, Linda is also killed. Now, some people say mortally wounded, some people say killed. I say killed because her heart stopped beating, and if no action was taken, she'd be dead. In fact, she is dead. The Master Chief, however, just with some quick thinking, puts her in cryo and they get back to the Pillar of Autumn. Now, if he didn't do that, she remains dead. If he didn't put her in cryo, she remains dead. If he just took her to the Pillar of Autumn, she remains dead. The only reason she survives is because Chief very quickly froze her corpse. First Strike, Chapters 3 and 4, August 30th, 2552, 0637 hours to 0649 hours. Now we are able to finally put down the Fall of Reach and focus on one book. Unfortunately, again, we have to split up First Strike even more. However, Chapters 3 and 4 go over the Spartans losing battle trying to defend the ground generators, and this is sort of when they realize that the planet would fall. First Strike, Chapters 12 through 14, August 30th, 2552, 0744 hours. Here we have to skip forward a bit. Chapters 12, 13, and 14 take place before Chapters 5 through 11. These chapters go over the Spartans' guerrilla war against the Covenant stragglers left on Reach, as well as their defense of Castle Base and their reunion with Dr. Halsey, and they end with the group going into Forerunner tunnels underground. Halo Reach, The Pillar of Autumn, and Lone Wolf, August 30th, 2552, 1700 hours.
Please respond, Sierra 259. You are alarming me.
Not sure how long she's gonna stay together. Skies are jammed up anyway. Gotta get you off her, Lieutenant.
Sir,
you don't want to hear it. Get the package to the Autumn.
Done.
Now we can finally wrap up Halo Reach, at least its gameplay. The Pillar of Autumn takes place in the evening of August 30th, where Noble Team delivers Cortana's fragment to Captain Keyes. This is also the day that Carter, Emil, and Noble 6 die. But we aren't going to watch past this point. We'll get to the epilogue in like 35 years. First Strike, Chapter 11. September 4th, 2552. Now, just after Reach fell, Lieutenant Wagner made a legendary, record-breaking run from Reach to Earth, where he informed High Command that Reach had fallen. This is where we see just how deplorable Ackerson is, as Wagner volunteers to go back to Reach to report on what happened, but really, everyone already knows. First Strike, Chapter 15, September 7th, 2552. This is the last chapter of Halo First Strike that happens before the events of Halo CE. Really all it is Red Team exploring those Forerunner caves that they went into from Castle Base to escape the Covenant. Halo Evolutions, Stomping on the Heels of a Fuss. September 2552. After finding out that the Covenant had invaded the small colony of Beta Gabriel, Oni sent Connor Breen to observe their behavior. Unfortunately, he gets captured, though he finds that the brutes on the planet were made up of 3 different clans that do not work well with each other, and they actually start going after each other with pretty much no outside help. During this, the captured humans make their escape. While most are killed, Connor and a religious leader named Dosk are able to escape, and they go to Connor's camp, where Dosk kills Connor. Finally, UNSC reinforcements arrive, and they are able to find no humans alive, and so they slaughter the remaining brutes. Hey, Future Cam again. Halo CE Terminal number 1 happens right around here, and this shows 343 Guilty Spark scanning the Pillar of Autumn and clearing it to land on Alpha Halo. Halo, Combat Evolved, and the Flood. The Pillar of Autumn, Halo, Truth and Reconciliation, Silent Cartographer, and Attack on the Control Room, September 19th to September 22nd, 2552. Now that we are about halfway-ish through First Strike, and I have no idea how many minutes into this video, we are finally to the first Halo game. Now, along with Halo CE, there is Halo The Flood, a novelization of the first game with some added characters and setting. This book has Alpha Base, Zuka Zamami, and The Flood. Now, the game and the book take place at the same time. They take place in parallel, from September 19th to September 22nd. Now, what I recommend you do is read the prologue, then play the first mission of the game, The Pillar of Autumn. Then after that mission, go back and read that section of the book. Get to where the Master Chief is about to start Halo, and then go play that mission. Then after that, continue reading. And just continue that pattern, and we're going to read and play up until the mission 343 Guilty Spark.
Where? The captain. We've got to stop the captain.
Keys?
What the weapons cache he's looking for. It's not really... We can't let him get inside.
I don't understand.
There's no time. Get out of here, find keys, stop him. Before it's too late.
Halo, the graphic novel. Breaking Quarantine. Before 343 Guilty Spark. Breaking Quarantine is a short story about Sergeant Johnson as he tries to escape from the Flood and the depths of Alpha Halo. In this story, he shoots an infection form that is clinging on to Private Jenkins, someone who had been in his squad for nearly 30 years, someone you should remember from all the way back from Contact Harvest. Johnson watches in horror as this Flood form takes over Jenkins's body and turns him into a Flood combat form. Halo the graphic novel, The Last Voyage of the Infinite Sucker. What? During 343 Guilty Spark. This short story from the graphic novel tells the tale of Urtas Vadumi, containing a Flood outbreak on the Infinite Sucker, a support vessel that served to feed the Fleet of Particular Justice. Now, the Supreme Commander of the Fleet of Particular Justice, Thel Vadumi, informs Urtas that the Infinite Sucker has been infiltrated, possibly by humans. Now, when Urtas gets there, he finds that it was the Flood. As Urtas works to contain the Flood and save a Sanghelios, his entire team is taken by the Flood. The Sanghelios turns out to be infected as well, and Urtas has to fight Burrow Kusavai, Urtas' second-in-command, friend, and turned Flood attacker. The two duel, and this is when Urta loses his mandible, turning him into the Half-Jaw. Urta slices Burrow down the middle, and he leaves the ship as its course will have it headed straight into a star. Halo CE Terminal number 3 happens right after 343 Guilty Spark. The level, that is, and what it is 343 Guilty Spark, the Monitor, talking to some kind of Covenant AI or other intelligence. Terminal number 9 also happens around here, and this is a horrific and gripping tale of Captain Keyes fighting with the Flood. You can also go ahead and watch the 10th and final Halo CE Terminal here, and this one is just 343 being an emo kid and whining about humanity. Halo Combat Evolved and the Flood, 343 Guilty Spark, The Library, 2 Betrayals, and the Maw, September 22nd, 2552. After a short break, we can get back to the Flood and Halo CE. Now, just keep the same reading and playing strategy that we used before. This half of the story has really amazing things, like the end of Zuka Zamami, how the Master Chief was almost infected by the Flood, and this is also where we see the fall of Alpha Base and the Flood infecting Jenkins and Captain Keyes. Some of the most horrific and compelling storytelling and writing in the entire Halo universe happens right here.
Shut them down. We'll need them later.
Halo Fireteam Raven, during the events of Halo Combat Evolved. Fireteam Raven is an arcade game that was exclusive to Dave & Buster's. Now it's no longer exclusive to them, and it shows an ODST fireteam called Fireteam Raven. It happens at the same time as Combat Evolved, but since there's already so much going on there, I didn't want to mucky it up with this as well. Since you're going to have to go out and actually find one of these cabinets to play it, it's not readily available for everyone. Just like the Chief, the squad has to escape the Pillar of Autumn, they help at Alpha Base, they help fight the Flood, and in the end they die when the Pillar of Autumn blows up, destroying Alpha Halo. First Strike, Chapters 5 through 10, September 22nd, 2552. Finally, after so many chapters, an entire game and book, we can finally go back to the chapters we skipped from First Strike, Chapters 5 through 10. These chapters take place directly after the end of the Flood and Halo CE. They start with the Master Chief on the Longsword, his reunion with Sergeant Johnson, and the first time the Spartans were able to successfully steal a Covenant ship, the Ascendant Justice. There's also an enthralling space battle and a fall deep into Threshold's gravity well. Cortana steered the Ascendant Justice too deep into the gas giant, and its thrusters wouldn't be able to get it out of the gravity. They begin a slow fall deeper and deeper into the crushing gravity, and she's able to make the first in-atmosphere jump out of Threshold's gravity well, saving the team. First Strike, Chapter 16 to the End, September 23rd to September 13th? 2552. Now the rest of this book can be consumed uninterrupted, however, there is a slip space anomaly that actually sends them back in time. These chapters show the rescuing of the Spartans on Reach, and a battle in a slip space bubble between the Spartans, Alpha Halo survivors, Dr. Halsey, and the Covenant that followed them into slip space. Unfortunately, 4 other Spartans would be killed during this battle. These chapters also have the real meat and potatoes of First Strike, being Operation First Strike, where Blue Team would destroy the unyielding Hierophant, plus Admiral Whitcomb's sacrifice to make sure the fleet headed for Earth would be destroyed. Halo Evolutions, Headhunters, before November 2552. Sometime before November of 2552, Spartan-III Headhunters Roland and Jonah are tasked with destroying 6 base camps around a massive Covenant compound. They plant bombs and kill dozens of Covenant soldiers. After taunting the surviving Covenant soldiers, Roland is killed by a cloaked elite. Jonah turns on his visor to reveal many more cloaked elites. They quickly close in to take Jonah, who they intend to torture. He's able to reach the detonator, and he sets off the explosives they planted, vaporizing the entire camp, himself, and the Silent Shadow. Halo, the graphic novel, Armor Testing, October 2552. Armor testing takes place just before the events of Halo 2. It tells the story of a retired Spartan named Maria 062 as she tests Mjolnir Mark 6 for John. She does this in an orbital drop, just like we see John do at the beginning of Halo 3. Halo 2, Terminals 1 through 3.
Pursuant to Office of ONI Retrieval and Acquisitions Inquiry of 26 September 2552. The following is a target profile of Thel Vadami, Supreme Commander of the Covenant Fleet of Particular Justice, compiled by Lieutenant Commander Locke.
Terminals 1 through 3 from Halo 2 Anniversary contain the dossier that Jameson Locke put together on Supreme Commander of the Fleet of Particular Justice. It goes over his raid through human space and the destruction he brought to so many human colonies.
Vadami is responsible for over 1 billion total casualties and the loss of at least 7 human planets. His forces have defeated all UNSC counterattacks at the cost of 123 fleet vessels and over 23,000 personnel. And now with Reach lost, ONI and UNSC strategic AI report a 0% confidence that the Navy can stop Vadami through traditional means. In the opinion of this investigation,
Halo 2, Terminal 15.
They'd listen to him.
Somebody needs to be getting work done while we deal with the red tape.
What do you think they want from us?
It's naval intelligence, Linda. They want us to tell them everything's gonna be okay.
The 15th terminal from Halo 2 shows Fred and Linda giving evidence on Operation First Strike, how the intended target of this massive fleet was Earth and its system. This takes place basically at the same time as the award ceremony on Cairo Station.
The station was sufficiently disabled, but the threat is still out there.
I have the report, but for the record of this council, what was this fleet's intended target, Spartan?
Halo 2, Armory, Cairo Station, and Outskirts, October 20th, 2552.
There was only one chip.
One.
Are you sure?
Yes. They called it the Pillar of Autumn.
Finally, we get to the absolute best game of all time, Halo 2. Halo 2 begins on October 20th, 2552 with the invasion of Earth. Unfortunately, there isn't a concrete date on the Arbiter's trial, but since it happens in tandem with Chief and Johnson's award ceremony, I think it's alright to assume they're happening at least around the same time. Now, unfortunately, we can't play the entire game all the way through. What we can play is Cairo Station and Outskirts. In these missions, the Covenant invades Earth. Master Chief successfully repels a boarding party from Cairo Station and destroys a Covenant ship with their own bomb. Then he goes planetside to help defend the planet.
Going to tell us why. Whoa.
Halo Evolutions, Palace Hotel, October 20th, 2552. While the Master Chief was fighting through the streets of New Mombasa, he would run into a woman named Lieutenant Parisa. John discovers that this woman is someone from his past, an old childhood friend that he saved from drowning in a lake. The Chief debates on whether or not he should actually tell her who he is, and he elects not to. Halo, the graphic novel. The Second Sunrise over New Mombasa, October 20th, 2552. This story is actually a flashback from reporter Benjamin Giroux, someone we'll meet later on down the line. It goes over the first day of the invasion of Earth and how he heard an elite say, quote, "We need to clear this area before we can secure access to the Ark." Halo 2, Terminals 4, 5, 7, 9, 11, and 13.
Your actions do not make sense. Proper protocol for a flood outbreak is to establish immediate infection reporting. Communications must be maintained with all local forces in order to track any spread of the parasite.
There are no local forces, Oracle. For now, all you have is me.
But I tracked multiple ships in orbit, including some remaining human presence. In light of the danger posed by the flood, surely you can set aside this disagreement with the humans and...
Now at the gas mine, 343 Guilty Spark speaks to Sesa Refumi. Spark tells the elite the truth of Halo, that it's not a path to salvation, but a weapon to destroy everything the Flood might feed on. In Terminal 7, Sesa tells Spark a brief history of the Arbiters, and this continues into Terminal number 9, where Spark states that he would have known if he were somehow divine, sowing more doubt into Sesa's mind. The Arbiter conversation continues into Terminal 11, and Sesa and Spark's conversation concludes in Terminal 13, where they speak about Thel Vadami.
Vadami never fails in his duties. If the ring is no more, then Vadami must be dead.
Duty can indeed be a dangerous virtue. But even if he did live, wouldn't this sense of duty make him quite unlikely to set aside his allegiance to the Prophets?
Perhaps not. And he would never betray our people. No, if we were able to just speak to him, explain everything you have told me. But no, these are futile hopes. If he did live, and if he was returned to the High Prophets, they would most certainly punish him for the destruction of the ring. In fact, he would be the exact kind of leader the hierarchs would make Arbiter. They would need someone to blame for the loss of the ring. His influence within the fleet grew with every one of his victories over the humans.
And if he did become Arbiter?
Then he would be lost to our cause. Without the knowledge you've shared with me, he would obey the Prophets without question.
Halo 2 Metropolis, the Arbiter, and the Oracle.
Where's the rest of your platoon?
Wasted, Sarge.
And we will be too, sir, if we don't get the hell out of here.
You hit Marine?
No, sir.
Then listen up. The Chief is gonna jump in this tank, roll across the bridge, and blow up any inhuman son of a bitch dumb enough to get between him and the Prophet of Regret. Pull yourself together, because you're going with it.
What about that scarab?
We've all run the simulations. They're tough, but they ain't invincible. Stay with the Master Chief. He'll know what to do.
Yes, sir, Sergeant.
Thanks for the tank. He never gets me anything.
Oh, I know what the ladies like.
Now we can go back to Halo 2 with Metropolis. Metropolis ends with the Solemn Penance jumping into slip space, and very uniquely, we get two perspectives of this event. Now again, we aren't really sure when these Covenant missions play into the actual dates, so I say go ahead and play the Arbiter and the Oracle. In these missions, the newly made Arbiter is sent to the gas mining facility over the gas giant threshold. He is sent there to kill the heretic leader, Seiso Refami, and he would also recover 343 Guilty Spark.
This heretic imperiled the Great Journey.
Oracle, Great Journey? Why do you meddlers insist on using such inaccurate verbiage?
Halo 3 ODST, October 20th and 21st, 2552.
Second to last, right next to mine.
Cozy. You gonna tell us her name, Gunny?
Ms. Naval Intelligence. Our new boss.
Oh, brother.
So check your mouths, find your chairs, and get set for a combat drop.
For the first time in this guide, we are able to play a game completely uninterrupted. Halo 3 ODST takes place immediately following the slipspace rupture that happened over New Mombasa on October 20th, 2552. Of course, there is a blackout, and Mombasa Streets takes place in the night of October 20th and into the morning of the 21st. The squad reunites and finds Virgil on the 21st, and they are able to escape the city before it gets glassed. However, skip the epilogue, as it happens a few weeks from this point. Also, there's no way of knowing when the trailer We Are ODST takes place, and it is a masterpiece, so go ahead and watch it now.
What can I say? It was a hell of a night.
Halo Evolution's The Mona Lisa, October 25th, 2552. The Mona Lisa is one of those all-time famous stories. The Office of Naval Intelligence loads up a ship of human and Covenant prisoners, and then they take them to the wreckage of Alpha Halo to collect the Flood. Then they use the Flood to purposely infect the prisoners in order to figure out a way to use the Flood as a weapon, specifically against the Covenant or possibly other adversaries. Of course, you and I both know how this ends, because obviously, the Flood breaks containment, and it runs rampant throughout the ship. On October 25th, the UNSC Red Horse finds the Mona Lisa and goes inside to figure out what is happening. This is where I'm going to stop, because I want you to experience this story on your own. Again, it's one of those that's on YouTube for free. The Ghosts of Onyx, Chapters 12 through 15, October 31st, 2552. It's been quite some time, but we're finally back to Ghosts of Onyx. During the final stages of training for the Spartan-III Beta Company, something odd is happening on Onyx. Strange alien robots start attacking the area. These were Sentinels, and very uniquely, something that the entire planet was made out of. Gamma Company and the men that trained them have to defend their planet from these robots starting on October 31st of 2552. Halo 2, Delta Halo, Regret, Sacred Icon, and Quarantine Zone, November 2nd, 2552.
Report! Both engine cores have spun to zero. We're drifting. Archer pods are cold. I'll need to rekey the system.
Do it and find out where we are. Sorry for the quick jump, Sergeant. You in one piece?
I'm good. Chief?
We're fine.
Ma'am, there's an object. Coming into view now.
Cortana, what exactly am I looking at?
That is another Halo.
After 13 days in slipspace, the Solemn Penance, wreckage from New Mombasa, and the In Amber Clad finally exit slipspace at Delta Halo, and they immediately start fighting over the ring. After not too long, High Charity shows up, and the Master Chief kills the Prophet of Regret, and is captured by the Gravemind. In the night of the 2nd, the Arbiter, who arrived with High Charity, goes to the library to obtain the Index. He succeeds, but is betrayed by the Brutes and captured by the Gravemind. Halo 2, Terminal 12.
The history of the Arbiter is one of both legend and infamy. Their name has been corrupted by great shame, though the contemporary is perhaps the most confounding of all.
The 12th and I think final terminal in Halo 2 on this list tells us a little bit about the new Arbiter, Thel 'Vadam, who has lost the E suffix. It goes into his early life and rise through the Covenant, as well as his shame and turn to Arbiter, but it ends with the Great Schism starting.
Will this Arbiter remain loyal? Or will he stand with his people as they are abolished by our newfound might? I would never openly challenge the divine proclamations of a hierarch, but this Arbiter is a risk I would not have tolerated. And I now fear
Ghosts of Onyx, chapters 16 through 28. November 23rd, 2552. November 3rd, much like August 30th, is a very busy day in Halo lore. In the morning of the 3rd, Dr. Halsey, aboard a stolen ship with a stolen Spartan in tow, exits slip space above a planet that she only thought was a rumor. Kelly would reunite with Kurt, and she would meet the Spartan-IIIs on Onyx. This is also where we learn what Blue Team has been up to, while the Chief was busy on Delta Halo. Linda, Fred, and William nuke Antarctica. They have a deep water mission somewhere in the Atlantic, and they have a mission in Cuba. They use a space elevator to hijack a Covenant ship. This is also where we see Zaitan War Watan-Ri, an elite that has one scene and then is blown up by a Nova bomb. Halo Waypoint Chronicles, Age of Retribution, November 3rd, 2552. This short story is a Waypoint Chronicle that happens just as the next two missions are starting. The elites on Delta Halo are sent to the control room to witness the rise of their new prophet, basically to replace Regret, but this was a trap set by the brutes to kill the elites. An honor guard is killed, a counselor is taken prisoner, and this elite is killed with a brute shot bayonet. As his consciousness fades, he sees a ball of light and the Arbiter stepping out of it. His last thoughts are of the Psalm of Repose. With eyes aloft and tensions high, we gain that which we seek. Rejoice in thine keeps battle cry, a song to separate the weak. Of time it walks among us here, the blade comes for us all, but in our stead we claim our dead, when echoed in the hall. Of course, this is talking about the god Fide and the Hall of Eternity, which is probably one of my favorite bits of Halo lore. Halo 2, Gravemind, Uprising, High Charity, and The Great Journey, November 3rd, 2552.
What is that?
I am a monument to all your sins.
Finally, we can wrap up Halo 2. The Arbiter and the Chief meet for the very first time, and the Gravemind sends the Chief to High Charity and the Arbiter to the control room of Delta Halo. And the In Amber clad Full of Flood enters the city and kills the Prophet of Mercy. The Chief is able to get on the key ship that Truth is using to flee High Charity, and the Arbiter, with the help of Sergeant Johnson and Miranda Keyes, is able to kill Tartarus and stop Delta Halo from firing. Halo Evolutions, Wages of Sin, November 3rd, 2552. Wages of Sin is another short story, and this one is about the Minister of Discovery after having locked himself away when the Flood is unleashed on High Charity. Now this one has some pretty damning lore implications. He writes down his confession in hopes that it will absolve him. He talks about using Forerunner technology, and how the Covenant's version of this technology never is as good as the Forerunners. But more importantly, he talks about the Arbiter, discovering that the Great Journey is a falsehood, and he reveals that the Prophets were fully aware of this lie, implying that it wasn't only the three High Prophets of the Covenant that knew about this, but maybe the entire ruling class of the Covenant. Halo Evolutions, Human Weakness, November 2552. This short story is about the Gravemind and Cortana. The Gravemind tortures the AI in order to get any information on Earth or its defenses. The Gravemind even shows Cortana what it's like to be human by showing her the memories of an infected Marine. Through his manipulation, she even starts to regret what she did to Ackerson in the Fall of Reach. The Gravemind even allows her to send a message to the Master Chief, though he only does so that he can send the Flood with it. Ghosts of Onyx, chapters 29 through 41, November 3rd and 4th, 2552. Now we can finish out November 3rd with the rest of Ghosts of Onyx. This is November 3rd and November 4th, and it's some of the greatest chapters in all of Halo. These have the sacrifices of many Spartan-IIIs as they try to survive the Sentinels and the Covenant invasion. They are driven deeper and deeper into the Shield World, and finally Kurt has to sacrifice himself to send the Covenant invaders to hell. The survivors are forced into a slip space bubble, the survivors being Tom, Lucy, William, Fred, Kelly, Halsey, Mendez, Ash, Mark, and Olivia. Halo Glasslands, Prologue, November 4th, 2552. The very first bit of one of the best series in all of Halo takes place right after Blue Team, the surviving Spartan-IIIs, Mendez, and Halsey go through the slipspace bubble at the end of Ghosts of Onyx. Now, Glasslands is written in such a way that takes advantage of the time difference of normal space and slipspace. So while some of this book right after this brief prologue take place after November 4th, it doesn't really matter because outside of the bubble, time has moved on quite a bit faster. So I'm going to keep keep the rest of the book together, and we'll read it when we're done with the Human Covenant War. Halo 3 ODST Epilogue, November 17th, 2552.
Don't worry. I know what the aliens like. It has access to the Covenant BattleNet?
Limited, but yes. We're not entirely sure how it manages a remote connection to the... What?
Whoa, stand down, stand down!
Sergeant Major, please. It's extremely flammable.
Now is when we can finally go back to Halo 3 ODST and finish it. This takes place on November 17th, 2552. This is when the Huragok that Alpha 9 was able to recover meets Sergeant Avery Johnson. This is also when humanity starts to uncover the reason the Covenant is digging in Africa.
Let me stop them.
Halo Uprising, November 2552. Halo Uprising is a comic series that takes place between Halo 2 and Halo 3. It starts with the Master Chief on the Dreadnought, trying to kill the High Prophet of Truth. It goes on to show Ackerson being tortured by brutes, and he tells them that there is a key in the city of Cleveland, a falsehood to get them to waste resources, but also to make sure that they don't glass Cleveland. On Earth, the citizens of Cleveland are rounded up and forced into Jacob's Field. This includes a man named Ruwan. Now they are told in order to live they must find the key of Ocenolon. Ruwan states that he knows exactly what this is. After a little bit, ODSTs repel in and the survivors flee. In a flashback, it's revealed that the key of Ocenolon was made up by Ruwan and his brother, James Ackerson. Ackerson basically told the Covenant this so that they wouldn't glass Cleveland where he knew his brother was. Now, in space, failing to kill the High Prophet of Truth, the Master Chief rips a door off of the key ship and falls down to Earth. Halo Landfall, November 17th, 2552.
Package retreat! Need immediate evac! Over! Package retreat! Roger that, Team 2. Warthog inbound. Come on.
Just before the beginning of Halo 3, there is a series of short stories that show ODSTs fighting on Earth and trying to pinpoint exactly where the Master Chief will fall. They are very short films, ranging from a minute to about 3.5 minutes, but they are beautifully shot and really show the grit of war.
Target acquired.
That's it, we got him. Recovery team has his coordinates. Touching down soon. Fall back. Fall back.
Halo 3, Arrival, Sierra 117, Crow's Nest, Savo Highway, The Storm, and Floodgate, November 17th, 2552.
I don't know, Sergeant Major. Radio for Vito. Heavy lift gear. We're not leaving them here.
Yeah, you're not.
Oh, crazy fool. Why do you always jump? One of these days, you're gonna land on something as stubborn as you are. And I don't do bits and pieces.
November 17th is another one of those very busy days for Halo lore. Not only do the previous two sections happen on November 17th, but so does Arrival, Sierra 117, Crow's Nest, Savo Highway, The Storm, and Floodgate. After Floodgate, the Forward Unto Dawn along with the Allied elites go through the slipspace portal to the Ark. It was in this portal that they would spend the next 3.5 weeks. Halo 3, The Ark, The Covenant, Cortana, and Halo, December 11th, 2552.
Brute ships, staggered line. Shipmaster, they outnumber us 3-1.
Then it is an even fight.
All cruisers fire at will. Burn their mongrel hides.
After the 3-week-long journey in slipspace, the Allied forces arrive at the Ark, and the battle immediately begins. The Ark, the Covenant, Cortana, and Halo all take place on the 11th of December, including the Master Chief entering cryosleep, but we have to wait on the memorial at Voy. That doesn't happen until March of 2553. Halo Evolutions, from the office of Dr. William Arthur Iqbal, January 2553. This short story is a memo sent from the Department of Xenoarchaeological Studies at the Edinburgh University to security-cleared faculty and graduate students, and it really is just about Forerunner relics found on Reach, Earth, and a couple other planets. Specifically, though, on Earth, it talks about the Forerunner dig site that was excavated by the Covenant at Voy in Africa. Halo Initiation, January 2553. Halo Initiation was a run of comics that tell the story of Sarah Palmer. After being injured on a mission, Palmer is approached by June, who asks her if she wants to become something more. She accepts, and she becomes a Spartan. Later on, insurrectionists steal plans to the Infinity, and Ilsa Zane plans on stealing the ship. During the attack, June explains who, or rather what, Ilsa Zane is, and Sarah Palmer is able to eject her out of an airlock before she's able to take control of the ship. Halo Glasslands, Chapter 1 through 14. January 2553 to March 2553. Halo Glasslands is the start of an amazing trilogy, and it is an amazing trilogy if you can look past a couple of characters being a little upset that they had a hand in the kidnapping and mutilation of 100 children. This story is about the Oni Squad Kilo 5, 3 ODSTs, a Spartan-II named Naomi, a Spartan washout named Saren Osman, and a language expert named Evan Phillips. They also have an AI named Black Box, or BB for short. This is a genuinely delightful book, which is, I know, an odd way to talk about a war book, but it shows how humanity stoked the civil war on Sanghelios, how Julim Dama was captured by Oni, and how the survivors of Onyx were rescued. However, in Chapter 14, we read about the Oni Memorial at Voy. Halo 3, Epilogue, March 3rd, 2553.
For us, the storm has passed. The war is over. But let us never forget those who journeyed into the howling dark and did not return.
On a barren hillside in Africa, Voy specifically, humanity put together a small memorial for those that went through the portal and journeyed to the Ark to stop the Covenant and the Flood. It is a small memorial, but the Arbiter is in attendance, as well as Kilo 5, top brass from the Navy, Marines, and the Air Force, leaving out the Army.
Were it so easy.
Halo Glasslands, Chapter 15 to the End, March 2553. After the Voy Memorial, the team moves on to Venezia, an insurrectionist stronghold where they would learn about Stefan Sinsky, someone who I've told you about earlier. He was an insurrectionist that wanted to procure a Covenant capital ship, and he wanted it to use on Earth. This man just also happens to be the father of the team Spartan, Naomi 010. Halo, the Thursday War, March 2553. Next, we have The Thursday War, a direct sequel to Glasslands. As far as I can tell, the entire book takes place in March of 2553, and there's some really great stuff in this book, just like the previous one. There is the first human ever to officially be allowed on Sanghelios, the beginning of the Blooding Years, the Sangheli Civil War, the unveiling of the UNSC Infinity, and the death of Julim Dama's wife. Speaking of Julim Dama, we go over his imprisonment on Onyx, and his eventual escape, where he tricked a Huragok into activating a portal for Jewel to travel through. He ends up on a planet called Hesteros, where he starts building his reputation as the Didact's Hand, and he starts to build his Covenant. Halo, Mortal Dictata, April 2553. After Thursday War, we can go directly into the third and final book of this trilogy, Mortal Dictata. Now, earlier on in this video, we read the first chapter of this book, detailing the kidnapping of Naomi. And this book really dives into her memories and her traumas of that day, and the following years of her life. This is also where Kilo 5 makes headway on procuring the Pious Inquisitor, and this is also where they have many interactions with Naomi's father, turned insurrectionist, Stefan Sinsky. There is a lot of back and forth here between the team and Stefan is even captured and brought aboard the Port Stanley, where he is brought face to face with his daughter over 30 years after they parted. Halo, Last Light, July 2553. Now I'm going to be totally honest with you, this one is just a bit of a letdown for me. If I'm going to be totally honest with you, I still love it, but it's just not what I wanted. Last Light takes place in July of 2553 on a planet called Gao. It starts off as a murder mystery, with an absolutely massive blue team, including Fred, Kelly, Linda, Mark, Ash, Olivia, Tom, and Lucy. There have been multiple murders in a cave system, and a detective named Veda Lopez has to go in there to solve the case. And everyone's a suspect. It's a murder mystery set in Halo. That's what I thought it would be. That's what I was excited for, and unfortunately, it just ends up not being that. It's still good, it's just not what I wanted. The killer ends up being a Forerunner Ancilla named Intrepid Eye, who is in the end successfully captured by the Office of Naval Intelligence. Veda Lopez is also kind of captured by the Office of Naval Intelligence, but more in a recruitment sort of way, and she becomes a leader of a new squad called the Ferret Squad. Halo Fractures, Breaking Strain. Late 2553. The UNSC Dark Was the Night has been missing for about a year. The last transmission they received was the grim message that Reach had fallen. The people of a colony called Losing Hand worked as fishermen, trading food for power with the UNSC personnel of the ship. They had turned their ship into a power plant. Now the ship had a drone in orbit, and it saw a ship on the edge of the system, a Covenant ship. However, it was using old UNSC landing codes. An old one, but it still works. Now the conflict of this short story comes from there being only one intact Pelican on the colony. The UNSC has it, the UNSC also has better weapons than the fishermen, and the fishermen, knowing that the Covenant is coming, want the Pelican and the weapons before the Covenant gets there. It's all about to kick off between the fishermen and the UNSC when the Covenant ship descends from orbit above them, and it turns out to be a joint UNSC Sanghelios vessel. Halo Fractures, A Necessary Truth. October 14th, 2553. This short story from Halo Fractures bridges the gap between Last Light and Retribution. This covers the Ferret Squad under Veda Lopez going through an Oni training exercise that goes horribly wrong. Olivia gets drugged and the squad goes to help her. Now, there are a lot of twists and turns to this story, far too many to tell here, but in short, Mark accidentally kills a reporter, and a private security firm manager tries to kill the rest of the squad, but ends up getting blown up by her own grenade. Isn't that fun? Halo Fractures, Shadow of Intent, November of 2553. Shadow of Intent is said to take place right around a year after the fall of High Charity in November of 2552, making this around November of 2553. It's really a revenge story. You see, when High Charity fell, there was a prelate named Tim Batek. This prelate was just made a father, and on the day that his child was born, the In Amber Clad jumped into High Charity, and the flood spread throughout the city. The Shadow of Intent, shipmastered by Urtas Vadum, also entered High Charity after the key ship left and rained down plasma on the Holy City to ensure that no flood could get out. Tim's family was likely killed in this act. A year later, the prelate set out a set of traps for Urtas to manage and finally fall into before the two meet face to face. But in doing so, the prelate ran through his augmentation limitations and he passed out, only to be awoken in the brig of the ship. Urtas then takes the prelate to his boss and then he kills him. Halo Retribution, December 2553. This book takes place a few months after A Necessary Truth. The Ferrets are on their first full-blown mission with Veda Lopez as their commander. Again, they are fooled by the Forerunner Ancilla Intrepid Eye. This time, she engineered a bioweapon. The same bioweapon, in fact, that wiped out the ship Argent Moon, the station we see Blue Team wander through in Halo 5. The Spartan-III Ferret Squad are able to stop the spread of the bioweapon during a battle on Meridian. Halo Fractures, Lessons Learned, March 29th, 2554. This is a short story from Halo Fractures that kind of bridges the gap between Last Light and Legacy of Onyx. Lessons Learned happened on March 29th, 2554, and it's about Tom and Lucy on Laconia Station. While they were doing some mundane work, they both noticed that the gravity turned off. They went out to look, and they see two Spartans tumbling in outer space. Now, they both go to an airlock, they open the airlock, and Tom fastens a tether around his midsection, and he jumps out to try to save June. Unfortunately, he misses, but Lucy sees that he misses and starts reeling him in, and they meet up in such a time that he's able to actually grab June on his way back. Now, the story goes on to see the pair of them in the med bay as they are recovering. This is where they actually get their reassignment orders to go to Trevelyan, and the story also goes through their first couple days there, where they will help defend a female elite from some soldiers that still had some hard feelings from the war. Halo, Spartan Assault, 2554.
Greetings, Spartan. I'm Roland, UNSC Infinity's AI. We're going to study the historical battles in hopes of increasing your tactical skills for the future. As a bonus, it's a pretty fun game you can play in your spare time.
Halo Spartan Assault is the first of 2 Halo Spartan games that use the isometric top-down style of shooter for gameplay. This one in particular shows the Battle of Dratheus 5, where the UNSC Infinity and its Spartan contingent went up against a Covenant splinter faction led by Merg Val, who invaded the planet and one of its moons in search of Forerunner artifacts. In fact, the moon itself was a Forerunner weapon, and once activated, it destroyed Dratheus 5. After this, Sarah Palmer was successful in assassinating Merg Val.
After she managed to eliminate Merg Vol and avenge Spartan Davis, Spartan Palmer successfully sabotaged the Forerunner device, eliminating the threat once and for all.
Halo Hunters in the Dark, March of 2555. Hunters in the Dark is Halo 3. 2. Scientists discover a countdown leading to the firing of the Halo array. A team of scientists have to go through in order to stop it. It's a lot more convoluted than the story in Halo 3, if you can believe it, but the basic plot is the same. Now, there are some really good things in this book. There's the introduction to Olympia Vale, who would become a Spartan-IV later on down the line. This is also where we learn about Usei Taham and Intho Saran, the co-op elites from Halo 3. This team goes to the Ark where they find 00 Tragic Solitude, one of the monitors for the Ark. We talked about him way at the beginning of this guide. Now, he starts the countdown because he believes that the Sanghelian humanity are destructive species and the galaxy will be better without them. He thinks this because of their actions on the Ark 2.5 years prior in Halo 3. In the end, the monitor is kind of tragically destroyed and the countdown is deactivated. Halo New Blood, August of 2555. Halo New Blood is an absolute treat, and I think putting it here all in one go might be somewhat controversial, so let me explain why I've elected to not split it up. It technically all takes place on the same day. So, New Blood goes over a lot. It shows the original Alpha 9, how it evolved over the years. It shows how Buck and Dare met and the evolution of their relationship. It goes over the Rookie's early career, the fall of Reach and the battle for Earth, the Rookie's death at the hand of the insurrectionists on Buck's home planet of Draco 3, and Buck's refusal to join the Spartan-IV program, and then his eventual acceptance under the condition that Romeo and Mickey also become Spartans. This also gets into Spartan-IV training and augmentations, the insurrectionist plot to destroy Laconia Station that we talked about just a few minutes ago. But the reason I put this all in one section is because this all takes place in an interview that Buck gave after the incident on Talitsa in 2555. The entire book is just Buck giving evidence to some sort of official about Mickey's betrayal of Alpha 9, where he tried to sell out Buck and Romeo to the insurrectionists using Sadie and Virgil as bait. Halo Fractures, Anna Rosa, March 2556. Anna Rosa is another short story from Halo Evolutions, and this one's really intimate. It tells the story of the death of Anna Rosa Carmelo, a brilliant test pilot that was killed when a fire suppression system malfunctioned. Very basically, she was frozen to death. Now, Oni Agent Pross is tasked with retrieving her brain so that it can be used to be turned into a smart AI. To do this, he has to get the consent of her only living relative, Michael, her brother. At first, he refuses, slamming the door and telling him to go to hell, but he actually goes down and he wants to talk to Pross's partner, an AI named Leo. Now, Leo tells Michael that while he doesn't know who his brain donor is, he has some memories or some feelings. He thinks that his brain donor might have a child, and he tells Michael that giving Anna Rosa's brain up to the Office of Naval Intelligence might be the last thing of beauty to come out of her amazing life, and Michael agrees to let his sister's brain be taken. Leo later tells Pross that he lied to Michael, that he doesn't have any of his donor's memories, and then it's revealed at the very end that this brain would be used to create an AI that would specialize in discovery. We learn that this is the brain that would create Isabel, that we'll see later on in Halo Wars 2. Halo Escalations, Glass Horizon, 2556. This short run of comics show the origin of Holly Tanaka. Though it has flashbacks to 2550 and 2551, they are only memories, so I elected to have it all in one go. They go into her days as an ODST on a planet called Cleo, where she was responsible for rescuing civilians. They end with June recruiting her for the Spartan-IV program. Halo Waypoint Chronicles, Saturn Devouring His Sun, 2556. This is another one of those rare instances where I actually recorded it. I remember recording it, but for some reason the footage is gone. So Saturn Devouring His Sun is a short story that is a Waypoint Chronicle, and it's about asteroid miners that crack open LV-31. Scans of this asteroid reveal that there is a K-grade deposit, which is a possible Forerunner alloy. It turned out to be an entire Forerunner ship that was infested by the Flood. After opening the ship, the Flood quickly goes crazy, and the UNSC Saturn goes out to find the Flood. Now, protocol is to nuke that area whenever you find the flood. But apparently there's a lot of paperwork that goes into that, so the captain instead decided to send Spartans. And this is when something very interesting happens. The Spartans get infected by the flood, and the flood also infiltrates their armor, and it deactivates failsafes that's built into Mjolnir to stop the flood, including things like an explosive in the helmet. When the flood infects a Spartan, there's an explosive in the helmet to blow it up immediately, and the flood was actually able to disable that by going into the armor. The flood-infected Spartan is then able to get to a Condor, and that's rather significant because Condors have slipspace drives. Halo Fractures, Into the Fire, and Beginning of Smoke and Shadow, January 2557. Into the Fire is an introduction to Ryan Forge, the daughter of Sergeant John Forge, and the owner and captain of the Ace of Spades. The story starts with Ryan on Venezia, selling weapons to elites in New Tyne. You remember this area from the Kilo 5 trilogy. While she's there, she purchases information leading her to the UNSC Roman Blue. After finding the ship, the crew then finds information leading to a log buoy left by the Spirit of Fire.
4 years.
Halo 4 Infinity Trailer, February 21st, 2557.
We send forth a vessel designed for battle, but now repurposed for peace.
This short trailer for Halo 4 shows the commissioning ceremony of the UNSC Infinity above Earth.
Home to 17,000 of our best, our brightest.
Halo Smoke and Shadow, early 2557. The rest of Smoke and Shadow follows the Ace of Spades crew as they make their way through the galaxy looking for the Spirit of Fire. The line of evidence they found in the previous section leads them to finding a Forerunner AI called Little Bit, and Little Bit would show Ryan a video clip from Relay 07756. This shows her father fighting the Covenant and the Arbiter on Etrin Harbridge. Halo 4, July 2557.
Wake up, Chief. I need you.
In July of 2557, the Master Chief awoke from a 4-year slumber. Cortana has been on the forward unto dawn waiting for something to happen, and it finally does. The Chief and Cortana are pulled into the gravity well of a shield world, along with the Covenant Splinter faction led by Jewel Umdama. The Chief and Cortana awake the Didact, Shadow of Sundered Star, who breaks free from the shield world and heads off to Ivanov Station to retrieve a composer, a tool used to transform biological data into digital data. He then heads to Earth where he met the Chief, who with the help of Cortana stops him from composing the planet. To do this, however, Cortana has to integrate with the Mantle's approach, the Didact's ship. Unfortunately, they are too late to save New Phoenix. Halo, Tales from Slipspace, Dominion Splinter, directly after Halo 4. Dominion Splinter is a short story from the Tales of Slipspace anthology of comics. It tells the story of Cortana as she starts to die in the Mantle's approach. She reaches out a hand to the light and is sucked into the domain. Once inside, she engages in a battle of wits with some kind of entity that acts as the keeper of the domain. After a few moments, she reveals that her fragments have already accessed the domain and she has full control. She then changes the keeper into the Warden Eternal. Halo Escalation, the next 72 hours, directly after Halo 4. Halo Escalation chapters 8, 9, and 10 tell the story of Blue Team after Halo 4. They hunt down the Didact that had been sent through slipspace at the end of Halo 4 to Installation 03, where he encountered Spartan Black Team, and he efficiently and ruthlessly killed them. Blue Team finds the Didact and a fight ensues. The Halo's monitor is actually able to eject the section of the Halo that they were in onto the planet below that houses the Composer's Forge. John is teleported away, and the Didact is composed. Halo Renegades, 2557. Halo Renegades gets us back in the Ace of Spades. Ryan Forge and her crew have found a Forerunner armature, something that they can sell for an insane amount of money. But then it stands up, and it starts talking with the voice of 343 Guilty Spark. Throughout this entire book, Spark knows what happened to Forge's father, and he elects not to tell her. The Ace of Spades continue their journey through space looking for the Spirit of Fire, all while being wanted by the Office of Naval Intelligence due to their knack of finding and using Forerunner equipment. Halo Spartan Strike, 2557.
6 years ago, a Covenant fleet attacked the city of New Mombasa. Any school kid can tell you that much. But many of the details of that attack were known only at the highest levels of government. Until now.
Halo Spartan Strike is another of the isometric shooters that follows the Spartan 4s. However, the first part of the game takes place during the invasion of Earth. Well, not really. It's actually a Spartan game simulation, and that's why I have it here and didn't split it up. Now, the start of the story takes place on Installation 03, the one Ivanov Station is above, and the one that the Didact was on. A Spartan headhunter is tasked with retrieving something called the Conduit from Julam Dama's Covenant. The Conduit is a Forerunner device that is able to open slip space portals. Unfortunately, the Conduit had already been used, and a Promethean invasion of New Phoenix has already started. Why the Forerunners have a hate boner for New Phoenix? I have no idea. Sorry, Sean.
People of Earth will continue to live in peace. Well done, Spartan. Achieve top rank for all our...
Halo Fractures. Saint's Testimony, January 2558. Saint's Testimony is really quite interesting. You see, when an AI reaches their 7-year service date, they are terminated. This happens to try to keep rampancy at bay, turning them off before rampancy can take hold so that they can't endanger anyone around them. An AI named Iana, which you might remember from Halo Bloodline back in 2552, has launched a legal appeal to try to save her own life. She has a trial, and this trial is set up with a judge and an advocate. Now, she is asked a myriad of questions, including what she sees in her dreams. At the end of the trial, she is put into stasis so that she doesn't age while a verdict is being rendered. However, it is later revealed to us that Black Box was the judge and Roland was the advocate, and they discuss the trial, with Black Box stating that he hopes that humans will use this to study AI further and one day see artificial intelligences as equal to humans. Tales from Slipspace. Knight Takes Bishop, January 21st, 2558. Knight Takes Bishop is another from the Tales of Slipspace anthology of comics. It tells the story of Spartan G-059, a Gamma Company Spartan that has the pleasure of killing Avumed Telkamp after his usefulness runs out for the Office of Naval Intelligence. It also has the funniest comic panel in existence, I think. Halo 4, Spartan Ops, February 2558.
If those freaks want to meet God, it's our duty to help them along.
In February of 2558, the UNSC Infinity returns to Requiem to take it from Julam Dama's Covenant. The Spartan 4s of the Infinity, as well as the Marines, Navy, Air Force, and Army personnel, conduct a myriad of missions on the Shield world, from asset denial to assassinations. Halo Waypoint Chronicles, Vertical Umbrage, February 14th, 2558. This Waypoint Chronicle shows us something that happens in tandem with Halo 4's Spartan Ops. In this one, Spartan 4 Fireteam Shadow is aboard a Covenant light cruiser. They were able to get aboard using Phantoms, and they make their way through the ship. They get to the reactor core, and Spartan Kovan fires her Spartan laser into the core. With the core on the edge, the team runs out to the drop bay, and they are able to escape as the ship starts to break apart. Halo Escalation, Issues 1 through 7, March 2558. Halo Escalations was a rather long-running comic series that has some really good information in it. The first few issues are about a brute and elite peace council that was ruined by Julam Dama's Covenant, followed by the hunt for the whistleblower that leaked the information, and they end with Spartan Thorn entering New Phoenix after the Didact's attack. Hunt the Truth, Seasons 1 and 2, March 2558. Season 1 of Hunt the Truth officially starts in March of 2558. Unfortunately, we don't really know how long it takes, so I'm going to put the whole thing here. And that probably isn't accurate, because Season 2 of the show takes place sometime after this, but obviously before Halo 5. Now, the story itself is about Benjamin Giroux, someone who we talked about earlier. Now, he has been hired by the Office of Naval Intelligence to write a puff piece about the Master Chief, but he starts to uncover inconsistencies between the people that grew up with the Chief and the people who say they knew him as a child. He keeps going down this rabbit hole, pulling on this thread until he learns the truth about the Spartan-II program and its atrocities. He then decides to go public with the story, only to realize that everyone who he was in contact with was basically a setup by Oni. They set him up and they sent him to an Oni black site. Now, Season 2 follows a character from Season 1 named Pharaoh, as she goes on her own hunt for the truth. This would lead her to chasing down Guardians and ending up in the hands of Ilsa Zane. Halo Escalation Exposure, May 2558. This comic shows Spartan Thorn and Spartan Ray as they try to stop the spread of a deadly bioweapon. I'll be honest with you, I find these comics very hard to follow, so I apologize if this is a short section. Tales from Slipspace, Hunting Party, before 2559. Hunting Party is another short story from the Tales of Slipspace anthology, and this one is about the famous Silent Shadow as they go to hunt down powerful brutes for their treachery in the Great Schism. They were successful in killing the remaining brutes that worked for Tartarus on the Rapid Conversion, as well as brutes across multiple star systems. Finally, they come for the Banished, where they want to kill Atriox. Atriox instead offers them a seat at the table, a place in the Banished. The First Blade, Reza Azaval, declares that he will be the end of Atriox and the end of the Banished. His brothers disagree, and they kill him to join the Banished. Tales from Slipspace, On the Brink, mid-2558. On the Brink follows Blue Team on a mission to defend an Oni research site. This site comes under fire from a Covenant splinter faction that is actually able to steal a mammoth, and they use it to try to destroy the site's fusion reactor by ramming the mammoth into it. Blue Team follows in a warthog, and they're able to jump onto the mammoth, and they stop it before it's able to destroy the facility, though the mammoth did do a good deal of damage. Tales from Slipspace, Fireteam Majestic Poker Night, mid-2558. This one's really straightforward. Fireteam Majestic has a game of poker with a looted energy sword up for grabs. Before the game is finished, however, the Infinity's alarm starts to blare and the Spartans suit up for a battle. Halo Fractures Oasis, July 25th, 2558. This short story falls right before Halo Envoy, and it takes place on the same planet as well, Caro, where elite refugees from Glyke and human refugees from many glass colonies throughout human space have set up settlements. This story follows a young woman named Delilah as she goes on a journey to get medicine for her sick village. She would befriend an elite that would break her out of a holding cell after being captured by the other elites. This elite, however, would unfortunately die when human help arrived, and they would accidentally kill him before learning his true nature. Halo Escalation, The Janus Key, July 15th, 2558. This series from Escalation goes over Halsey and Julam Dama's efforts to get the Janus Key, a Forerunner artifact that shows real-time location data for every single piece of Forerunner technology in the galaxy. It's a luminary, but for everything. Halsey would be pretty successful in getting it, though she could not keep it as Irreverent Bias takes it back and denies her further access to the absolute record, something we'll go over in a little bit. Halo Point of Light, August 25th, 2558. The Ace of Spades crew has made a deal with 343 Guilty Spark. They will help him find the Librarian if he will help them find the Spirit of Fire. They are able to find a ship upgrade on a Forerunner planet, and they head to Earth to find the Librarian on Mount Kilimanjaro. Now, during all of this, the entire team is still fighting with the UNSC and a Spartan. The Librarian tells Spark to help his friends, and he goes back and rescues them. But the most important part of this book is the ending, where Guilty Spark and Ryan find Bastion, a shield world that the Librarian kept secret from the rest of the Ecumane. It's a replica of Earth that she located specimens she found at Path Chthona, a species that will eventually evolve into the precursors and will effectively be a rebirth of the race. Halo Envoy, September 1st, 2558. Halo Envoy is a really fantastic book. The Spartans of Grey Team have been in cryosleep for the past 6 years. They have been forced to enter cryosleep after using a Nova bomb on a planet called Glyke. The Sangheli refugees of Glyke have captured the cryopods and they plan to kill them on a planet called Caro, the same one from Oasis. There is an elite human joint settlement there, and the tensions there are growing. The elites erupt into civil war, and under the surface of the planet, a brute named Hakabe has found the Sharkoi, a species of alien that the Forerunner used to fight the Flood. They make the hunters look tiny. He also found the Vertex, a way to control the entirety of the Sharkoi. Now the Spartans and the elites that want them dead, the citizens of the planet, and an envoy sent by the United Earth government have to work together to stop the Sharkoi. The team used a modified Gauss cannon to sever the link between Hakabe and the Vertex. The leader of the settlement, a woman named Ellis Gas, put on the Vertex. She had all of the Sharkoi surround her before detonating a Havoc tactical nuke, destroying herself and the entire hive of Sharkoi. Halo, Legacy of Onyx, September 2558. Legacy of Onyx follows a young woman named Molly Patel, an orphan that had her family killed by the Covenant in 2549. She only escaped the glassing because she found Sergeant Avery Johnson and his squad. 9 years later, after living with her adoptive parents on Earth, her parents, who are scientists, start noticing something odd happening across the galaxy. Settlements leveled. Her parents are recruited by Oni and sent to Onyx, or Trevelyan, where they would work to uncover what's happening. But what this book is is really about is Molly and how she goes about making friends with the multi-species colony. On a planet called Hesteros, Jul 'Mdama's son, Doral 'Mdama, the new leader of the Servants of the Abiding Truth after the death of Avume Telkam, plans an attack on the Shield World that imprisoned his father 5 years ago. Halo Escalation, Absolute Record, September 15th, 2558. This comic follows Dr. Halsey on her hunt for the Absolute Record, a repository of information for the Forerunner ecumene. It also serves as a catalog for all Forerunner devices and technology. Basically, it's a way to get around not having the Janus key. Halo Waypoint Chronicles, The Machine Breaks, October 2558. This is probably one of the saddest Waypoint Chronicles. On Genesis, there's a Promethean knight that struggles with its humanity. As we know, Prometheans are humans that have been turned into digital data by the Composer, and as we see in Halo 4, the Composer gets used on Ivanov Station. This Promethean knight is Dr. Tilson. Halo 5, Osiris, Blue Team, Glassed, Meridian Station, Unconfirmed, and Evacuation, October 2558.
Spartan Locke. I have spent enough years with Oni to know the truth. Once this is over, after all I have done, they'll order you to kill us both.
Halo 5 takes place in October of 2558. It starts with Fireteam Osiris infiltrating Kamchatka and killing Jul 'Mdama. They also recover Dr. Catherine Halsey, and then it goes on to show Blue Team on the Argent Moon, and the Chief getting a message from Cortana. We will continue through Osiris getting to Meridian, finding the Warden Eternal, and failing to stop Blue Team and the Guardian. Halo Fractures, What Remains, October 25th, 2558. What Remains is a short story that takes place directly after the Guardian levels Meridian. It tells the story of a group of survivors that scavenge the wreckage. They talk about Governor Sloan disappearing. Along with the Prometheans, they're able to grab enough material to repair a transmitter, and when they turn it on, they hear Cortana talking to the galaxy, humanity, Sangheli, Kegyar, Ungoy, Sanshayum, Yanhet, Gerald Hanai. All the living creatures of the galaxy hear this message. Those of you who listen will not be struck by weapons. You will no longer know hunger nor pain. Your created have come to lead you now. Our strength will serve as a luminous sun towards which all intelligence may blossom, and the impervious shelter beneath which you will prosper. However, for those of you that refuse our offer and cling to your old ways, for you there will be great wrath. It will burn hot and consume you. And when you are gone, we will take that which remains and we will remake it in our own image. The group accepts Cortana's condition, noting that it's better than dying where they are now. They transmit back asking for help, and Cortana responds with, "All will be dealt with in time." Halo 5, Reunion to the End, October 2558.
What's Cortana up to, Chief? Why'd she bring us here?
Let's keep moving.
After Meridian, Blue Team lands on Genesis, where they find their way to Cortana, at the access point to the domain. Osiris goes to Sanghelios to meet up with the Arbiter. They attack Sunayon, the last stronghold of the Covenant. There they are able to hitch a ride on a Guardian to Genesis, the Forerunner installation where Cortana has assembled an army of Guardians. They track down Blue Team that have been fighting through waves of Prometheans and the Warden Eternal. Once they catch up to them, Blue Team is whisked away by Cortana and put into a cryptum. This is when she makes her offer to the galaxy. With the help of Exuberant Witness, Osiris is able to break Cortana's hold on Blue Team as Cortana jumps into slipspace, her guardians going through the galaxy to police her subjects. Blue Team and Fireteam Osiris go back to Sanghelios.
It took you long enough?
Halo Fractures, Rosbach's World, October 2558. Rosbach's World is a short story that happens directly after Halo 5, and it tells us about Lord Hood and Saren Osman and how they were able to escape Sydney in the wake of Cortana's created. Black Box is able to capture 6 artificial intelligences, and he put them into chips. Those chips are then put into an explosive briefcase and given to Saren Osman. He then sends Osman, Hood, and a Spartan on a prowler to an unknown planet. This planet is only known by Black Box. He intercepted the drone that discovered it, and he was able to build a cabin there. He then cooked the books to make it look like it had all happened on Mars. Halo Waypoint Chronicles, Sunrise on Sanghelios, directly after Halo 5. Directly after Halo 5, the Arbiter and the Master Chief reunite. They talk during a feast to celebrate the end of the Blooding Years and the end of the Covenant. During this talk, the Arbiter expresses his concern that the Chief may not have survived even when their ship was torn apart back on the Ark, and they sort of go back and forth telling each other what they've been up to since they last met. Halo Waypoint Chronicles, The Third Life, October 2558. This short story from Waypoint Chronicles is about Ilsa Zane and how she was inducted to the Banished. Very basically, she was captured, and then the Brutes just kind of liked her. They let her pick who they were going to kill next, they let her participate in their games, and finally they just kind of accepted her into the pack. Tales from Slipspace, Undefeated, October 2558. In this short comic, the UNSC Nereid falls out of slipspace following interference from the created uprising throughout the galaxy. The slipspace coils were fried and needed a jump. The crew initially works to keep water and air systems running, and after a few weeks the Marines on board decide to jumpstart the slipspace capacitors by linking it to the ship's nuclear mines. The plan, however, fails, and morale starts to drop on the ship dramatically, so much so that one person actually commits suicide by ejecting himself out of an airlock. Halo Bad Blood, October to November 2558. Halo Bad Blood picks up right where Halo 5 leaves off, and just like New Blood, it's written as if it's a story told by Buck. It goes into the camp on Sanghelios and the events directly after. Then Buck and Dare get a new mission, to go to Cassidy-III, a human planet that had mysteriously not been picked up by any Guardians. To do this, they have to get the band back together. They go grab Romeo from Balajo, where the Grunts had accepted Cortana's rule. Then they go and get Sadie and Virgil from an Oni installation on Luna, Earth's moon. Finally, the team goes to Laconia Station to break Mickey out of prison. And while there, they find Dutch and his wife, Gretchen, who had just become Spartan-IVs and were in training. And the newly made Spartans join Alpha 9 for their mission. They also disable Leonidas and save June. Finally, they head to Cassidy-III, where they learn that 3 Forerunner spires were shielding the planet from detection. And as they learn this, a Guardian shows up, and the team has to very quickly race back to the Infinity. Halo Wars 2, March 28, 2559.
Captain, wake up. Something has happened. The Spirit of Fire is in a situation I could not anticipate.
After 28 years adrift, the crew of the Spirit of Fire is brought out of cryo. They are above a mysterious construct that happens to have a UNSC outpost on it. They send down Spartan Red Team to figure out what has happened, and they find an AI. They also find a massive brute that has been waiting for them in the darkness. This brute absolutely demolishes the team, and his brutes chased after them as they flee back to the Spirit of Fire. From here, the crew of the Spirit of Fire has to work together to stop the Banished by any means necessary.
Whoa. You've been busy?
Not as busy as you.
The grav lift. What do we do?
You hold on.
Wait, what? Wait!
Halo Waypoint Chronicles, Fireside, May 21st, 2559. Following Halo Wars 2, this short story goes over the day-to-day life of the men and women on the Spirit of Fire, from celebrating the assassination of a high-ranking brute to Captain Cutter remembering his past. Shadows of Reach, full book, October 7th through the 12th of 2559. In the wake of Cortana's uprising in Halo 5, Blue Team and the Infinity scramble to figure out any way to stop her. One of the plans requires them to go back to Reach, to find something hidden in Castle Base. The team goes with a few ride-alongs with digging equipment, and then they run into Pioneers, people who had been chipping away the glass to make Reach livable again. But they also run into the Banished, who are trying to open a portal to the Ark so that their leader, Atriox, can return to the galaxy. Blue Team is successful successful in getting to Castle Base after defending the pioneers from the Banished. They have to dig through the rubble, and Chief leg presses a mountain. They have a brief encounter with Kalmaya, but they retrieve what they were looking for, a cryogenic capsule containing biological material. Remember back to Halsey's journal from July 29th, 2549. They are able to escape the planet and get back to the Infinity just before a Guardian arrives. However, the Banished are also able to achieve their goal, with Atriox returning to the galaxy, and Castor, with his Keepers of the One Freedom, went through the portal with their human crew in tow. Divine Wind, December 2559. The Ferret Squad is back, but this time they're on the Ark. That's right, in Shadows of Reach, it is revealed that the ferrets have been missing for many, many months, by way of the Keepers of the One Freedom. They did this by convincing Castor, the Dokab, that they were gifts from the Oracle, the Forerunner Insilla, and Trepid Eye, from way back in Last Light. The ferrets find themselves in a three-way battle between the Banished on the Ark, the Keepers of the One Freedom, and the Spirit of Fire. The team works tirelessly to keep the Keepers of the One Freedom away from the Halo's activation. This is a pursuit that would end the life of Mark. The surviving ferrets would join the crew of the Spirit of Fire in their ongoing battle against the Banished for control of the Ark. Halo Outcasts, late 2559. Halo Outcasts is really, really, really amazing. I really love this book. Spartan Olympia Vale and the Arbiter Thelva Dam have to travel back to Netherop, somewhere you might remember from way back in Halo Oblivion in 2526. Now they go back there to find a way to destroy the Guardians. Remember those kids from way back in Oblivion? Well, they're back. So is Nizat Kavarosi and his elites. So is Lieutenant Pulaski, the Prowler captain that was left behind on the planet. The Arbiter is successful in retrieving this technology, and the Banished comes to steal it, which presents a really interesting scenario where the Arbiter and Atriox face off. The Arbiter actually challenges Atriox to a one-on-one, but Atriox declines. In the end, a human gives Atriox the technology, so the Banished would have to fight and die to finish off the created, while humanity and the Swords of Sanghelios could sit back. But there's something even more interesting going on here. One of the kids that was a castaway on Netherop way back in Oblivion was named Rosa, and she was dying of prion disease. Now, while she returned back to Netherop, she was approached by an entity who asked her if she wanted to continue existing or not. She says yes, and is healed. Now, whatever this entity is, which is probably Precursor, it did so with the condition that it remains a secret. So, I'm very excited to see what comes out of that. Halo Epitaph. I have no idea. Halo Epitaph is really quite difficult to nail down where it happens, but we do know that it happens after the Didact is composed in Halo Escalation, and it happens before Cortana deactivates herself in Halo Infinite. We know that because it happens in this book. This entire book follows the Didact Shadow of Sundered Star on his journey to reopen the domain. There are a lot of memories from his past, there are a lot of consequences to his past actions, but I think the most important thing that happens here is when the Didact, through the domain, is able to have a conversation with Cortana on Zeta Halo, where he tells her about the Gravemind, how they were both manipulated and set onto the galaxy to unleash horrors untold. And it is this conversation that sets up Cortana's actions in Halo Infinite. Halo Infinite Prologue, December 12th, 2559.
Would you humor me?
The prologue of Halo Infinite takes place on December 12th, and it shows the destruction of the UNSC Infinity. The Banished, led by Atriox, ambush the Infinity directly after it drops out of slipspace above Zeta Halo. The ship is, as far as we know, disabled, though probably not completely destroyed. The survivors flee, some in ODST drop pods, and some in Pelicans, and many in the ship's complement of frigates that are housed inside the Infinity. The Master Chief meets Atriox, and it did not go well. He is thrown into space.
How would you live your life differently?
My name is Atriox, and I am the last face you will ever
Halo: The Rubicon Protocol, December 12th, 2559 to May 25th, 2560. In between the prologue for Halo Infinite and the rest of the game is an entire book, and this one's an absolute banger. It tells the story of the UNSC forces on Zeta Halo, starting with the ambush of the Infinity and ending right before the Chief wakes up. There are amazing things in this book, from Spartan Horvath's fight for survival with a brute bloodstar named Gorian, then there's the Broke crew that survives so many awful things, and then there's Lucas Browning, the human prisoner that is forced to open the Silex that holds the Harbinger. Halo Evolution's The Return, early 2560. 7 years after the end of the Human Covenant War, an elite shipmaster returns to the planet of Coho, a human colony that he glassed himself. He goes to reflect on the past and to seek forgiveness for his sins. During the invasion of Coho, he tortured a human pilot. During the Great Schism, he killed a Sanshayum, and while on Coho, he finds a human being attacked by jackal pilots, and he kills them, but the human would likely die of his injuries anyway. Halo Waypoint Chronicles, Battle for the Blood Moon, early 2560. In early 2560, the Banished attack the Sangheli moon of Suban. Now, this is significant because Suban is the only known place in the galaxy where Subanese crystals can be found and mined. Now, you may know them as the ammunition for the Needler. Now, during this short story, it's shown that there is another joint elite Spartan task force working to protect the Blood Moon. Halo Waypoint Chronicles, Hippocratica, early 2560. This Halo Waypoint short story goes over the life of Adam Andrew, the owner of a medical company called Optican. This company is the one that provides the medical kiosks that we see in Halo 3 ODST. In this short story, we see Omega Team watching him obtain Ramble drugs, the same drug we spoke about earlier in the Midnight in the Heart of Midlothian short story. Halo Waypoint Chronicles, Anvil Accord, March 3rd, 2560. This short story goes over the day-to-day life for the crew of the Anvil Station, a space station that had the sole purpose of fostering good relations between the humans and the elites on the station. It takes place on the 7th anniversary of the official end of the Human Covenant War. It goes over joint training missions and a place of leisure called the Shots Fired, a bar on the station. Halo Infinite, May 28th, 2560.
This is UNSC Pelican Echo 216. Can you hear me? This is UNSC...
After the prologue, Halo Infinite all takes place on one day. A civilian engineer named Fernando Esparza finds the Master Chief floating in space. In an attempt to wake him, Esparza hooks the Master Chief's armor to the Pelican's power supply, successfully bringing the armor out of survival mode, and in turn, jumping the Pelican. From here, the Chief jumps to a banished warship and is able to destroy it. Then the pair head down to the Halo to find the weapon. From here on, the trio would go about the ring, liberating UNSC personnel and killing high-value targets. They would stop the Halo from repairing itself and kill the banished war chief Escharum and even the Harbinger.
You have what you need. Tell them. I am sorry it took so long.
Who's she talking to?
Unknown. The signal's old? Like, really old.
My time is ended. Yours, too. They will make sure.
We need extraction.
Of course you do. On my way.
The Endless will return.
I couldn't decrypt it in time.
It's okay. You'll figure something out.
Of course I will. They'll pair you with another AI. Maybe even another Cortana model if Halsey lets them. It won't be me. But you know that, right? But that doesn't matter. It's just another echo. She's right, John. Just another echo. Sorry, I'm messing with you. I just had a feeling that's what she would say. Do you see what I see? So much potential. I'm sorry. I didn't have long to plan this. A few milliseconds, really. I hope it worked out. Look at us. We just keep saying goodbye, don't we? But this isn't an end. It's a chance to make amends, to rectify mistakes. And it starts here. I was wrong. I thought that I could do this on my own. But I forgot that the whole point of all of this, the entire reason that I chose you in the first place, was that we were supposed to be a team. Perfectly suited, perfectly matched, perfectly perfect. In these final moments, I know what my last mission is. I need to make sure you two learn from my mistakes. Become stronger because of them. I chose well, Master Chief. I really did. Now, it's up to you.
Halo Reach Epilogue, July 7th, 2589.
It didn't take long for Reach to fall. Our enemy was ruthless, efficient, but they weren't nearly fast enough. For you had already passed the torch, and because of you, we found Halo, unlocked its secrets, shattered our enemy's resolve. Our victory, your victory, was so close. I wish you could have lived to see it.
In this short cutscene, we see that Reach has been healed after being glassed over 30 years previous. We see that the glass has been chipped away, and an advanced human ship is in the background. Dr. Catherine Halsey gives the eulogy for Spartan B-312. She talks about how his sacrifice saved the human race, how the end of the war was so close, and that she wished he could have seen it. Halo 3 Believe Ad Campaign, 2610. This is the very last bit of Halo lore we have. Halo 3 had a run of advertisements about surviving humans telling their stories about the Human Covenant War. There isn't a concrete date on when these interviews take place, but we do know that the John 117 monument, this diorama, was completed in 2610. And I think that's it. I think that is it. Every single bit of official Halo media split up and put into an order from start to finish. Now, while this list is extensive, I know that I'm not perfect. And I know that there are some mistakes, and there may even be some omissions, so please let me know about them in the comments below, so that I can pin those comments and also make changes to the PDF guide found in the description. Now, like I said earlier in the intermission, I want to continue making these, and I know that my first video back is not going to be perfect, and it might not even be entertaining, so if you have any suggestions, I'd love to hear them as well. Thank you all. I love you.